Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was Otsutsuki in Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by SCORCHED 34th and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. 001 The World's Flaw. Uzumaki Naruto returns to his hometown after his studies in Europe. And on his first day back there was two human-like hollows attacking his cousin and her friends. What's an aspiring doctor to do? Step in. Room shambles. The tall blonde stretched out in his small cot as he glanced out the nearest window to see the full moon and a small tickling of the clouds below. How long has it been since I've been back in Japan? The blonde thought as he sighed before his eyes locked with an air hostess who happened to be checking the aisles. The woman smiled prettily as she looked at the blonde taking in the lanky young man who looked roughly her age if not a little bit younger. The blonde pulled his headphones off from his head, letting them rest around his neck. Uzumaki-san. The blonde sat up slightly, his obsidian-like pendant jingled due to the movement, the dark glinting metal reflecting in the dim light. What is that? The hostess thought as her eyes took in the triangle encased within a circle. It give me the chills. Yumi-san, right? Two things, you got some ramen on this boat. And can I get a drink, miss? The air hostess shook her head, forcing herself out of her own head, and smiled instantly. Of course sir, and I'll have a look for the ramen in the back. And with that the hostess continued on her aisle check. Naruto smirked at the thought of ramen, the flight back home was long enough. I wonder how everyone is doing. Naruto whispered as his cousin and a couple of his childhood friends flashed in his mind's eye. The tomboy and a scruffed-up guy with a bloody grin as she was awarded her first colored belt. Otsutsuki. His cousin ditzy goof who couldn't cook to save her life. Orihim, someone's got to look after you since Sora's gone. The fist was lodged in the blonde's face, while his own fist was firmly indented in an equally tall boy's cheek. Fucking strawberry punk. Naruto growled through grit teeth. Whisker face asshole. The other teen rumbled back. Ichigo, I wonder if you've awoken yet. Naruto thought to himself before the hostess returned with a drinks menu and a small frown on her face. Naruto knew the look. Dang it, no ramen until touchdown. Naruto muttered as he accepted the menu. Thanks. His eyes scanned the menu before a stray thought crossed his mind. After letting sis know I've arrived. The scorching sun beat down relentlessly over Karakura town, not a cloud in the sky, as Naruto finished unpacking at his cousin's house. Suddenly, an eerie sensation prickled at the edge of his consciousness, causing him to whip his head towards the farthest window. An invisible weight, heavy and oppressive, descended upon him, but he stood firm, barely flinching under the pressure. Hollows. Naruto's mind raced as he closed his eyes, extending his spiritual senses to get a deeper feel of the disturbance. Ichigo. Orihim and Otsutsuki. His eyes snapped open, a mix of concern and determination flashing across his face. In an instant, he was moving, his body responding to the urgency of the situation. With fluid grace, he slid the window pane aside, the glass, cool against his fingertips. Placing one foot on the ledge, he paused for a split second, muscles coiled like a spring. Then, without hesitation, he pushed off, launching himself into the open air. His departure was marked by a brilliant flash of emerald green light, a telltale sign of his unique abilities. The air shimmered around him as he vanished, leaving behind only a fading afterimage. What the blonde shinobi failed to notice was the sleek black cat perched atop the neighboring building, its golden eyes tracking his every move with uncanny intelligence. His speed, he's not bad, but that's no flash step, the cat mused, its tail twitching thoughtfully. Its piercing gaze followed the intermittent flashes of green as Naruto bounded across the skyline, each leap punctuated by that distinctive emerald glow. As the blonde finally disappeared, the cat's eyes narrowed. Kisuke will definitely be on the move now. The cat stood, stretching languidly before leaping off the roof with feline grace, its mind already racing with the implications of what it had just witnessed. And the centralized park bodies were hitting the ground as their souls were being devoured. White streaks filled the skies as the large hollowed inhaled and chowed down on the souls of the innocent and guilty alike. What the? Naruto thought as he arrived at the edge of the park. Orihim knelt by a taller Latino guy who looked in a bad way. Ichigo was on his knees and beaten bloody. Before Kurosaki stood a pale man with green soulless eyes, dressed in all white and a half helmet on his head. Next to him stood a giant man in all white, also currently draining the nearby souls of the regular humans en masse. The big hollow paused and began walking towards Orihim, who was terrified as she tried to put up an orange shield, but the big human-like hollow had already swung. Yeah, nah, this ends here. Naruto thought before he reached for his pendant and as his hand wrapped around the symbol. Surgical malpractice. And in a flash of green, a red triple-pronged scythe was in the blonde's hands as a near-translucent blue disc formed just above his palm. Just as the giant's backhand smashed through the shield. Orihim. Ichigo cried out as the monster carried on with his swing. A voice called out as translucent dome expanded around the group. What is this? The pale one thought to himself as he glanced at the energy surrounding them. Shambles. And with that Orihime had vanished and in her place stood a blonde wielding a crimson scythe blocking the one-armed brute's backhand with relative ease. Sorry about that, not going to let you beat on my cousin like that. The blonde started before looking towards Ichigo. Why are you cosplaying a samurai Ichi? Before Ichigo's brain could even catch up the blonde was on the move again. You two are hollows right? The blonde began. Well the name's Uzumaki Naruto and you boys don't belong here. Uzumaki warned with nothing but menace before he twitched parrying and knocking the brute's arm away. Before an orange glow began to emit from the back of the blonde's throat. What the? Yami cried out as he was knocked off balance and this new human was charging up AA0. Were the injured hollow's words as he recognized the sound of his species' most natural technique. Zero Naruto whispered before unleashing his attack. The blonde opened his mouth and spat out a large orange beam of energy that knocked the oaf back off his feet and driving the overgrown hollow into the dirt and making a new trench in the park. As Naruto cut off his power his weapon was already pointed at the pale one who had yet to move an inch. A human who can use a zero? The pale one muttered, how interesting. Yami get up we're leaving. There was a flash of light and the blonde had vanished reappearing above the downed Yami with his scythe glowing with ethereal power. Hunter's Crescent. Naruto shouted as he swung and from his 3 blades, Reiatsu ripped off the blades tips clawing through Yami's tough skin, spilling the hollow's blood across the grass. The pale one just arched a brow and raised a finger as a green orb of energy began to form. Zero. Naruto's ears picked up of a familiar technique charging up and swung his scythe arm blocking the blast at first, but as he was being pushed back, he powered through and swung skywards, splitting the zero down the middle. Shit he moved me. Naruto cursed before he held his hand out again a disc of energy formed once again. Yami groaned as he got up his clothes all scuffed and covered in burn marks. His wounds hadn't healed, but the blood had stopped flowing while Quiora. The brute managed to wobble back to his feet. It's just another puny human. If you cannot sense it then, I am not going to explain it. Ulquiorra said before twitching his finger. A garganta opened behind the pair. Ulquiorra glanced back toward the Shinigami with fluctuating spiritual pressure and the human that could emit a full-blown zero. Lord Aizen may be interested in the new arrival. Were his last thoughts as he turned away letting the tier in space close itself up. Leaving, mainly humans left in the park before some bushes began to stir and shake. Out of the bushes came 2 more individuals, one wearing a bucket hat and the other a woman dressed in orange. Naruto blushed at the sight of the purplenet before clearing his head and taking a stance just in case. What do we have here? The blonde in the bucket hat spoke up first as he giggled behind his fan. Hey Kisuke, your idiot pupil got beat up again. The woman called out as she marched over to the prone Ichigo. When he wins he is your pupil, but when he loses he's mine, how cold Yurichi. There was a flash of green and Naruto reappeared behind the woman, his blades edge at her throat. I don't know you so stay away from my friend. Oh, that wasn't flash step, you were right. Kisu continued completely calm despite his partner had a reaper on her back. Still not fast enough to catch me though. What? Naruto asked bewildered before she vanished before him. Too slow little boy. Yurichi taunted with a giggle as she ran her hands through the blonde's hair. Who do you think you're talking to? Naruto shouted back, his tone nothing but a challenge as he turned on a dime and vanished in an emerald flash after the woman. Kisuke stood while Ichigo lay prone, both watching their friends chase each other around like it was Tom and Jerry. Since when did Naruto have powers? Did you say something, Ichigo? Nothing, just get me up, we need to check up on Chad and Orihime. Orihime is fine, she's tending to some humans who were knocked unconscious from all the spiritual pressure being thrown around. And look over there. Kisuke pointed off to the side. Ichigo's gaze followed only to find Chad missing. SI has already brought Chad back to the shop to receive treatment. Kisuke explained before Ichigo could say another word. Thank you Urahara. The grateful Ichigo, oh my, it is the end of the world. Kisuke teased before turning back to the chase. This new guy is fast and just how is he keeping up with Yurichi? The end. 002. Long live the king. Uzumaki Naruto, the Nanadame Hokage, father to 2 wonderful children, husband to a loving wife. His once blonde hair faded to gray, the once proud man knelt before the shrine he built for his family. Sticks of lit incense left the air with a particular scent the truly last Uzumaki was all too familiar with. Before him was a small banquet of freshly baked chocolate cake, a plate filled several yakisoba buns, right next to steaming bowl of ramen and small plate of cinnamon buns. The gray overcast sky looked like it was about to open up and pour from the heavens. Naruto, Himawari, Naruto spoke their names softly as he reached for the bowl of ramen while reaching into his kimono, drawing out a pair of chopsticks. With a low bow while holding up his bowl. Hinata. He whispered his wife's name before he sat up and began to eat his ramen as he lamented and allowed his thoughts of his family to come forth. Thunder boomed in the distance. Naruto quirked a brow but focused on his meal. His thoughts drifted to when he was released from that seal. I tried to make up for lost time, but that accursed seal stole so much. Naruto thought as he allowed the sound of nature from the birds and the running stream nearby. The sky flashed before roaring once more. HMPH, I guess it's that time once again. Naruto chuckled as he began drink the rest of his bowl. The sky flashed once more before a bolt of lighting struck down in the clearing behind the shrine. Ah, Naruto said as he finished slurping his food before belching out loud. Hahima would have loved that. Naruto chuckled as he placed his bowl down and laid his chopsticks over the bowl. Naruto, your cousins promised to take care of this place, so don't worry about a thing. And I'm sorry for not being the greatest father toward you. Naruto said before standing and stretching out his limbs. Hinata, I know I will not be joining you in Pure Lands my love, but know this from the depths of Yami, I will forever hold you in my heart. Naruto vowed before walking towards clearing behind the shrine. After a few minutes Naruto exited the trees and onto the actual clearing with both hands behind his back as he stepped purposefully slow, sometimes sliding to the left or right. His ocean blue eyes locked in on two gray-skinned beings. More of you guys, don't you get tired of losing? Naruto said like a grumpy old man with a slight inclination for mischief. You're the legendary Uzumaki Naruto, the famed protector of this world. Naruto just yawned and began obnoxiously stretch. Such insolence, the shorter of the two stomped forward a couple of paces before turning and pointing at the taller Otsutsuki. You stand in the presence of. The taller Otsutsuki blinked as a gust of hair blew by causing him to shield his face, and the voice of his lesser just vanished. After a few moments the wind died down, and as he looked around the only thing left in the clearing was himself and his chosen prey. Didn't ask for his name, Naruto started before turning toward the last alien standing, only to see his mouth move. No, don't need it, don't want it, so fuck yourself. The nameless Otsutsuki's eyes widened as so-called prey moved his arms to a praying motion and an entity formed behind the old man. Naruto channeled his technique he mastered within his imprisonment. Chakra burst from the old man like a burst pipe spiraling into the sky. I may not have Kurama with me anymore, but fuck it. Now then, would you kindly fuck off my planet? The giant humanoid nine-tailed fox appeared but hovered in the air on one leg as its tail swung behind with ominous intent. Welcoming approach. Thousand-arm murder. The nameless Otsutsuki looked up and realized one step too late as tail reached around and slapped him back in the direction he came from. The clouds were blurring by before the alien began skipping across the earth like a stone across the water before driving a trench into the ground right next to his lesser. As the pair groaned they looked up to see Naruto standing before them. You guys never truly understand, y'all never really learn. Naruto began as he stepped forward. You Otsutsuki who parade themselves around the stars believing they are owed, but you never learn from your predecessors. Naruto coughed in a bubbling rage. There is a reason why you have not claimed this world in 60 years, and it's not me. The two-term Hokage paused for but a moment. You've never understood us, the people you claim to lead. You see us as ants, subservient to your very whims and desires. But you never learned. You truly know nothing of the bottomless malice that is held within the human heart. Naruto barked out a laugh. Kagaya figured it out, but after all these years you dipshits just don't get it. The two Otsutsuki just glanced at each other before nodding and both charging at the man with reckless abandon. So sure, in your victory perhaps it's time this old-timer to go a few rounds. Naruto said with a smirk as he began to move before the pair reached him. The overcast sky was banished, smoke and ruin spilled across the land of fire countryside, the land ripped and torn asunder under the gaze of the full moon, with one major difference, it had been cracked and shattered in the conflict between the closest thing to deities this world had ever known. As the rubble of their clash floated still trapped within planet's gravitational pull. Naruto stood on 2 feet, his attire ruined on. Left in combat trousers and sandals as his armor had been burnt of during this battle. His chest heaved up and down. The good old Uzumaki stamina really ain't what it used to be, the old man chuckled to himself as he removed the sole of foot from the chest cavity of the Otsutsuki with a short man complex. Arrogant bug, he spat as he ducked on instinct as the real power behind this duo missed by an inch. Why won't you die? The Otsutsuki half screeched due to Naruto crushing his windpipe earlier, which was refusing to heal. That inch was more than enough for Naruto rotate on a dime and launch a heel kick to alien's jaw, launching him up into the air. Time for an oldie but a goodie. Naruto said before crossing his fingers in an oh-so-familiar hand sign, shadow clones. In puff of smoke stood 3 clones fueled with senjutsu levels of chakra. Naruto held out his left hand as his right arm fell limp as his wounded shoulder continued to bleed. One clone leapt into the after the invader, locking the alien in a bear hug, preventing any movement. while Naruto had two clones feeding wind chakra into his Rasengan as it began swirling to life. It was the last clone who focused on not just slicing, but also vibrating the wind chakra being fed into the famed technique, an invisible shell formed over the basketball-sized Rasengan. Naruto raised his arm high as his eyes narrowed with a veteran-like experience as he locked in on his clone's back as the Otsutsuki struggled to fight the sage-enhanced clone. One last push. Rah. Naruto roared as reared his arm back launched the screeching Rasen Shuriken, its blade scratching against the shell as it flew so fast the first boom pushed Naruto skidding backwards from the force. Dueton. Hypersonic Rasen Shuriken. Naruto said as he watched his final attack tear through the sky just as he felt his clone disperse from Anita the asshole. The Hokage thought he got the phantom pain. Up in the sky now free the Otsutsuki looked toward his quarry only for his eyes to widen. So much chakra, he thought in fear as he saw an orb of death spinning toward him thanks to his Dojutsu. As if he could read his mind Naruto spoke up. Oh, look lesson number 15, just because you can see it coming doesn't mean you can stop it. The old man then raised his aiming it toward the flying technique. As the last word from the sage's lips were heard by the invader, his eyes widened as blood splurged from his mouth. Lancing down deep inside his chest the flying spinning ball of death lodged firmly where his heart should be. DTT his circa and be. Too fast. But it so can. Naruto responded as he let go of his hold of the technique as it detonated and became a hurricane on wind chakra ripping up the world around. After a few minutes the technique's after effects began to die down. The old man saw a body launch off into another clearing nearby. Naruto's vision swam into darkness for a moment before he vanished in a swirl of leaves. It didn't take very long for the former Hokage to track down the Otsutsuki sliced to ribbons. Man, I do love Fuinjutsu and underrated art, but boy did that nullify those healing factors. Naruto taunted as he slowly approached the body. Always confirm your kills. The body twitched and in his hand was a green gemstone scratched by Naruto's technique. The gemstone began to ooze a toxic miasma. Naruto's eyes widened as he attempted to leap back but was too late and power surged from the gem and it released a pulse of energy detonating shaking the entire continent with its force. It was at this spot did Uzumaki Naruto, hero of the elemental nations, save the world one last time before leaving scar nature would have trouble repairing anytime soon. Naruto's body fell for what felt like hours before he crashed inside of some kind of white realm of nothingness. Shit, not alone. Naruto thought as he glanced at two shadows before his momentum sent him spiraling across this canvas. You know what, fuck it, the bastards are dead and I'm going to sleep, it's up to the youngsters now. Naruto thought before he closed his eyes and let go of the fight and died with a smile on his face. Across the way stood two figures shocked at the appearance of this stranger. A human? Here? One took a step and in an instant appeared by the stranger's downside. You are not one of my creations and I do not know where you hail from, but instead of meeting oblivion shall grant the entry into these lands. The being spoke as if it was law as he raised his hands. Naruto's soul was yanked up and out leaving the body behind before tapping the man on the forehead. What the fuck is going on? Naruto as he began to glow a white light. You're going too well of souls for reincarnation. And what's the catch? Naruto asked. The man said nothing else and waved his hand and Naruto vanished from the realm. Now then tell me about this courtyard, Ichibei-san. Naruto felt exhausted, he was really warm and now really cold, everything was bright. Come on Sora-kun, come and say hello to little Naruto-kun. Naruto opened his eyes, looked over toward a much bigger person. What the? Naruto said before his eyes were covered in a haze greenish mist and memories of his past life were locked away. Whoa, he is really small, Ka-san, can I have a sister or brother? Sora looked up at his mother before going between his aunt and the small babe and his mother again. Hush darling, not the time. Sora's mum spoke down to her son before she looked at her nephew in her sister's arms. Ah, I'll give you 3 months before you cave. The new mother sent an exhausted smirk her sibling's way. Sister? Sora's mother gasped in faux shock. 8 summers later, Naruto was taller, able to support his own head. On the sidelines were his clubmates, but also his friends Tatsuki, Ichigo in their own white guy. The blonde glanced at his family and the support crowd. He stood before their sensei, both armed with a wooden stick as they stared each other down. Hajime? A voice shouted as the two leapt toward each other. 5 more winters came and went. After what seemed like eternity, the blonde looked around himself as he tried to catch his breath as he found himself in an abandoned warehouse. He had run and run, leaving his friends behind, trying to lead the howling creature they couldn't see. The young teen reached for his pendant his mother got him from his birthday. It helped calm his nerves down. The howl came again, only Naruto dove to the side, leaping out the way, accidentally tugging on his pendant only for it glow green for a brief moment before dulling down once more. The tail whipped out of the shadows. Naruto leapt up and over, but activated something because beneath his feet there was a small green flare that blasted the young 14-year-old into the upper beams at the two tops of the warehouses. Feeling himself of the ceiling, the blonde sat in the darkness of the ceiling on a railing. He was rubbing his as he sat there trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Who knows? Naruto thought before he saw the hollow pacing beneath him, and the hollow was waiting for him to leave his safety. Gah fuck it. Naruto thought as he just did what he always did, dive in headfirst. The boy leapt from the railing as the large reptilian-like hollow leapt up to meet its prey. Rea! Rea! Both roared at one another. Naruto rolled in the air just as he was 2 feet above the creature. He reared back as much as he could before lashing out with the mother of all headbutts, his body instinctually being reinforced by his own spiritual pressure. As Naruto's forehead contacted mask, there was flash of green that cracked the bone-like mask. The beast crashed back into the ground, kicking up dust. The monster hissed before fading back to its home direction in order to heal its own mask. The force of the headbutt ricocheted the blonde kid deep into a wall of the warehouse. 5 more summers passed and currently Naruto was engaged in a very heated game of cat and mouse against a speed demon with purple tinted hair. Bringer's Light vs Shunpo. The goddess of Flash versus a new player. Come on boy, I thought you were going to show me my place. Flash of Emerald. Give me a moment, Naruto said as he came skidding low, swinging his scythe up as she leapt over him, but in an extreme display in flexibility she contorted and flipped backwards as a few strands of hair fell onto the blonde's chest and there was a small eerie silence. Not bad kid, you're the first human to ever get that close to tagging me. Yuruchi praised before her smile turned predatorial as gazed at the younger man. Now I think I'm going to change up the game. Why do I feel like I fucked up? Naruto muttered before the woman vanished before him. Shit, Naruto cursed as he raised his shouted. Room, the translucent dome appeared just as Yuruchi appeared, her leg fully extended for an axe kick. Shambles. Naruto said as the woman's heel came down and in the instant of contact Naruto switched positions with the clog-wearing man who was completely taken by surprise as Naruto reappeared by Ichigo's side. Urahara shot down like he had been shot out of a cannon straight into the dirt, kicking up a whole lot of dust from the impact. So yeah, I'm going to run before scary lady comes after me and I'll see you for dinner Ichigo. Naruto said before vanishing in a flash of green, leaving a dumbfounded substitute Shinigami. Dinner? Wait what? 003. Thunderous day out. Now I think I'm going to change up the game. Why do I feel like I fucked up? Naruto muttered before the woman vanished before him. Shit, Naruto cursed as he raised his shouted. Room, the translucent dome appeared just as Yuruchi appeared, her leg fully extended for an axe kick. Shambles. Naruto said as the woman's heel came down and in the instant of contact Naruto switched positions with the clog-wearing man who was completely taken by surprise as Naruto reappeared by Ichigo's side. Wait Yuruchi. Urahara cried out, but it was too late. The heel drop connected and Urahara was blasted down to the ground like he had been shot out of a cannon straight into the dirt, kicking up a whole lot of dust from the impact. So yeah, I'm going to run before scary lady comes after me and I'll see you for dinner Ichigo. Naruto said before vanishing in a flash of green, leaving a dumbfounded substitute Shinigami. Dinner? Wait what? Ichigo half questioned half yelled before he was blinded by the flash of green. Naruto was gone, but he did grab a certain someone. Standing on top of a roof in the middle of Karakura town, Naruto had just placed his cousin down after grabbing her in his daring escape. Naruto-kun. Hey Haim, I know it's been a minute, but Power's girl since when? Naruto asked with genuine excitement. The girl just leaped at the older boy. I completely forgot you were coming. Of course you did. And in what powers? Orihime attempted to lie. What are you talking about? Naruto just arched his brow and raised a finger. You're 1000 years too early to lie to me Haim. Naruto said as his finger began glow a subtle green. Pretty Orihime thought before that same finger poked her in the forehead. Ow. She whined before her form pulsated green and then orange then back to green. Interesting, Naruto said as his eyes scanned over his cousin. You have an impressive amount of spiritual pressure from somewhere, I mean not as much as Ichigo or even me, but still impressive. Naruto's eyes were drawn to the hairpins in Orihime's hair. Bingpot. He muttered, it's an object. Is she a Fullbringer like me? But why manifest now? Naruto's mind raced with possibilities. Naruto-kun. Sorry, Naruto said snapping out of his thoughts. We need to get home, we both need showers and a change of clothes, we're going to dinner at the Kurosakis tonight. What the? Orihime cried as she went tomato red. Naruto said no more and swept his cousin of her feet and kicked off the ground, launching the pair into the air. I'm guessing you can't do this yet. Orihime just shook her head rapidly, the girl kept her eyes closed as she was scared to look down. Better hold on tight then. Naruto warned before he couched in the air before kicking a vanishing in a burst jade light. The sun had long since set and the full moon was out on this cloudless night. Standing outside, Naruto and Orihime stood outside the Kurosaki clinic. The door swung open and the two teens looked down to find a dark-haired preteen staring up at them. Parent-chan, hello. That's the ankle biter. Naruto said in surprise, but she's not chibi anymore. Are you calling ankle biter? Karen snapped before she remembered the one person who called her that outside of Ichigo. You. Me? Naruto let out a bellowing laugh. Naruto, my boy, is that you? A deep masculine voice called out from inside the home, come on and it's freezing out there. Karen just sighed and stepped aside, allowing the two teenagers in. As they went from cold to warm, the smell drew both teens in as they took off their shoes upon entry and was led to the dining room. The pattering of footsteps burst out the nearest room and an even younger girl came skidding out of another room. Yuzu-chan? Orihime asked as the girl seemed to be in a light distress. Orihime ni, I can't reach the paprika bucket. Ichi left it on the tallest shelf. Orihime just nodded and followed behind the girl toward the kitchen. That's Yuzu. Things do change with a little bit of time. Naruto muttered. While Listen and Karen were setting the table, Yuzu and Orihime were in the kitchen. Naruto decided to go and bother Ichigo. Like the shinobi of old, Naruto creeped up the stairs till he came to the only door fully closed before he smirked and reared his leg back. What's good, strawberry? Look at you, it's been years even though it feels like a few hours. Naruto shouted as he booted the door open, letting light into the bedroom of the firstborn in the Kurosaki household. Ah! Ichigo cried, shouted as light invaded his dark room. Why are you sitting in the dark, Ichigo? Have you entered your I hate the world phase? Yet Naruto asked as he stepped into the room only to have an orange teddy bear thrown at his face. There's a soul in that thing. Naruto sensed before sidestepping, allowing the teddy to smash into the wall behind him. Ha, you missed. The blonde taunted only to receive a sock-covered foot to the face that kicked him out of the room. Arg. Naruto, why are you always so chaotic? Ichigo shouted before Naruto leapt up and speared the teen back into his room. Downstairs the roughhousing could be felt by all. Not even back 5 minutes and they are already starting. Karen complained while Listen just smiled as he continued to set the table. Lasaki, I hope you're watching. The bearded doctor thought as he was reminded of a time his dear wife was still with him and the boys fought just like this. Always-kun, look, I think those two boys are going to be great friends. Misaki gushed over the two boys, 1-7 the other 9, after they got into a fight defending another neighborhood boy from being bullied. Hey Karen-chan, wanna take a bet on who comes down victorious? Gun to your head, drop a Lloyd Banks verse. Naruto said, his voice being muffled via the floorboards. Wahoo, even got Lloyd Banks verses on standby. Ichigo's own voice traveled soon after. Karen's eyes narrowed. What's the stake? Well, how about this? The night had settled over Karakura town, the Kurosaki household quieting after a lively dinner. Orihime, lulled by the delicious meal and the day's excitement, had drifted off on Ichigo's bed. Meanwhile, Ichigo and Naruto found themselves on the roof, the cool night air, a stark contrast to the warmth of conversation as they caught up. So you're a soul reaper, Naruto stated, his tone a mix of curiosity and understanding. Yeah, I am, Ichigo replied, his voice trailing off as he grappled with how to phrase his next question. Naruto, perceptive as ever, could read the churning thoughts on the teen's face. How do you even know about that world? Ichigo finally asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. Naruto's gaze drifted to the starry sky, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. I was born to it. I'm what you would call a Fullbringer. Fullbringer? Ichigo echoed, the unfamiliar term piquing his interest. Humans who inherit powers as diverse as the world itself, Naruto explained. When hollows attack expecting mothers, and if she survives, that child is born with the ability to manipulate the souls residing in all physical matter. Ichigo's eyes widened as the implication sank in. Hollow. But that would mean. That's right, Naruto confirmed, his voice taking on a more serious tone. My powers, their origins come from Hollow Ryoku. A moment of silence passed between them before Ichigo spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Hollow Ryoku, is that how you fired that zero? Naruto chuckled, a mischievous glint in his eye. My zero? Nah, I got that after I ate a hollow. What? Ichigo exclaimed, his face a picture of confusion and disbelief. Years ago, while I was getting a grasp on my abilities, an animalistic hollow attacked me, Naruto recounted, his voice taking on a distant quality. In my desperation, I drained its Ryatsu and accidentally bonded it to my own. Ever since then. Hardcore, Ichigo breathed, a mix of awe and respect in his voice. I know, right? Naruto grinned before his expression softened. I'd show you now, but I think it's time to call it a night. You've got school in the morning and I don't start my job here until next week. You're probably right, Ichigo conceded, feeling the weight of the day's events. Besides, you took quite a beating today. You need to rest up, Naruto added, concern evident in his voice. With a fluid motion, he stepped off the roof backwards, landing on the air as if it were solid ground, and walked through the large window. Naruto's gaze fell on Orihime, peacefully asleep with soft snores escaping her lips. "When are you going to tell the boy how you feel, dummy?" he thought, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Quietly, he scooped up his cousin along with her shoes and bag. "At you tomorrow, Ichigo," Naruto called out as he leapt from the window, disappearing in a flash of emerald light. Still on the roof, Ichigo watched the green flash fade into the distance before turning his gaze back to the night sky. Tonight was nice, it felt normal, he mused. Despite the bruising his pride had taken from the earlier hollow encounter, the almost normalcy of the evening had helped him process recent events, offering a moment of peace amidst the chaos of his new reality. The following day, while kids were at school, Naruto went for walk to shops for some ingredients and actual food for his cousin's spot. After completing his shop, Naruto left the store with 4 large bags, and as he stepped outside the store he glanced to his left, his attention by a small swarm of men or boys he couldn't tell at this distance, surrounding a lone mint-haired woman was backed into a wall. "Come on honey, let me show you around. Yeah, Japan ain't safe for strangers unless you're with friends. Just like us. I love me some European girls, I swear. Look, just back off before you get fried," the mint-haired girl warned. The gang of young men laughed and mocked the threat. "I would listen to woman if I was you," Naruto called out, grabbing everyone within earshot. The jeering stopped. Everyone turned to the blonde who had still had hold of his shopping. Another Gaijin, the most aggressive, stepped away from the woman they were harassing. "What are you going to do about it?" he said as he sneered at the taller blonde. As the goons moved to back their boss up, they all felt an immense pressure. They all stared into blonde's ocean blues, and the fear began to creep in. The leader lost his nerve and swung a wild haymaker. Naruto just leant back slightly, his smirk never leaving his as the fist was met only air resistance. "I'm impressed," Naruto said with a smirk. "Behind all that angst and ridiculous hair there is a real fight under all of this. Hey, don't diss my pompadour. Don't be a creepo and surround women then," Naruto responded before glancing over to the mint-haired who hadn't moved but was watching the situation with an intrigued eye. Seeing his enemy's eyes wander, the pompadour delinquent drew a switchblade and went for the jugular. "Look out," the mint-haired girl shouted, but it made no difference, the blonde just sidestepped as the knife wielder just collapsed on his face. The audience were stunned into silence. "BB boss," one of the underlings tried to call out. The whispers were all varied, but mostly were "what knocked that boy out?" The blonde stepped away. The mint-haired girl, her eyes narrowed. "That was too fast for a human, could he be a Quincy like me and the others?" Her mind replayed what she saw, the blonde foot strike upwards into the harasser's chin, causing his head to smash skyward as far as his body would allow. And no one else could see it. Naruto stepped past the teen and slowly paced towards the others, his hands still full. "Who's next?" "You're dead, Yuhius," a brave or foolish soul stepped forward. "Yeah." Another piped up, "and behind your fucking attitude is a dead man walking." Naruto just smirked, counting there was at least 8 of these guys. "Boys, you couldn't even fathom the number of dead men behind me." The group of delinquents went silent. "Wait, what?" one asked before they all got active once more. The heart of Karakura town bustled with activity as Naruto and Candace strolled side by side. After the confrontation with the thugs, Naruto had offered to escort her back to her companions. Their journey led them to a quaint coffee shop, its warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. "My girls should be in there," Candace said, gesturing towards the cafe. "I guess this is where we part ways." Naruto's ocean blue eyes met her vibrant mint green gaze. "I just realized something," he mused, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I never caught your name." The mischievous smirk played on the girl's lips. "Because I didn't throw it." "Cheeky," Naruto remarked, clicking his tongue lightly, an appreciative grin spreading across his face. She glanced at Naruto, taking him fully for the first time from the tan combats, black and tan Air Force Ones, with a black hoodie with orange drawstrings. "He does look yummy." Without warning, she extended her hand. "Pass your phone," she demanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. Naruto complied swiftly, unlocking the device and handing it over. With deft fingers, the midnet navigated to his contacts, swiftly entering her number before tossing the phone back to him. "The name's Candace," she announced, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness. "Give me a bell sometime." Before Naruto could respond, Candace leaned forward, her mint green hair catching the soft glow of the streetlights. Her lips, soft and warm, pressed gently against his cheek. The scent of tangerines and oddly enough fresh ozone enveloped him, momentarily short-circuiting his thoughts. "You better call me, fly boy," she whispered, her breath tickling his ear. As she pulled away, a melodious giggle escaped her lips. Candace turned, her hair swaying with the movement, and strode towards the coffee shop. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, snapping Naruto out of his daze. He stood there, rooted to the spot, the ghost of her kiss still lingering on his cheek. The scent of tangerines hung in the air, a reminder of the enigmatic Quincy who had just waltzed into his life. As the door closed behind her, Naruto couldn't help but feel that this encounter was just the beginning of something extraordinary from the feeling he was getting. Unbeknownst to Naruto, he had felt this feeling before, just that it's currently out of reach. One thing the pair both missed was a blonde-haired man with a buzz cut who was standing high above the clouds, watching the love of his life kissing another man. "You will pay for such insolence, punk," he said through gritted teeth. After reaching Orihim's apartment, Naruto realized his cousin was absent despite school ending an hour ago. Closing his eyes, he extended his senses, the world fading to black as different levels of spiritual power within a 50 kilometers radius materialized in his mind's eye. "There's Ichigo and Orihim, and now they're gone," Naruto mused, opening his eyes. He decided to leave them be, trusting Ichigo to keep his cousin safe. However, the tranquility was short-lived. Suddenly, spiritual pulsations rippled through the air, each wave more intense than the last. Naruto's brow furrowed as he contemplated the nature of these disturbances. "SOS or a challenge?" he muttered, scanning the room for his trainers. The final pulse hit him like a tidal wave, its oppressive force nearly staggering. A grin spread across Naruto's face, a mixture of excitement gleaming in his eyes. "I'd bet," he declared, slipping on his shoes. His simple words having more mass to them than needed. As Naruto prepared to investigate, the air around him crackled with anticipation. Whatever awaited him, be it friend or foe, they had annoyed him. The tallest building in Karakura town stood sentinel as a blonde-haired man with a buzz cut, clad in an immaculate three-piece suit, a leopard print waistcoat, top hat and tails, perched atop its pinnacle. The night air crackled with tension, anticipating the impending clash. Suddenly, a flash of jade green illuminated the sky, alerting those spiritually aware to Naruto's arrival. He materialized nearby, his ocean blue eyes quickly assessing the situation. Naruto's gaze fell upon his challenger, and he couldn't suppress a smirk. "Is this clown going to a wedding?" he quipped, his voice laced with amusement and disdain. "No, no, no," the suited man muttered, his fingers dancing across the hilts of two wicked-looking knives. With a flourish, he drew them, their blades gleaming in the moonlight. "Not a wedding. That comes later. Right now, I'm planning a funeral," he shouted, his voice echoing across the rooftops. Raishi began to gather at the man's feet, a blue glow contrasting sharply with Naruto's jade green. Naruto's eyes narrowed, recognizing the technique. "That's not a bringer's light." "That's right, it's not, you half-blooded monster," the man spat, venom dripping from every word. In a blur of motion, the attacker reappeared before Naruto. With lightning reflexes, Naruto tugged on his pendant. A flash of emerald light erupted, and a crimson scythe materialized in his hands, its wicked curve deflecting the twin zombie knives mere inches from his chest. "Well, you're not a soul reaper or a hollow, and you're definitely not one of me," Naruto mused, curiosity mingling with the thrill of battle. "So, what are you?" With a casual flick of his wrist, he batted the dual-wielding assailant away. "I'm a Quincy, the last Quincy now then hearing Kyaku." Bringer's light. The two combatants vanished, reappearing high above Karakura town. The night sky erupted in a dazzling display of blue and green flashes, punctuated by showers of sparks as their weapons clashed repeatedly. Naruto weaved gracefully between his opponent's lunges, his movements fluid and precise. His heel flashed green as he launched a devastating roundhouse kick. The well-dressed man barely ducked in time, the kick slicing clean through his top hat. "I don't think so," Naruto roared. Another green flash erupted from his foot as he redirected his attack, driving his heel deep into the rising blonde's cheek. "Ah!" The suited man spiraled through the air, blood and spittle raining down on the unsuspecting citizens below. Naruto flashed above his opponent, who was still reeling from the blow. His scythe, now pulsing with spiritual pressure, began to glow green before shifting to a brilliant orange. The three blades on the palm hummed with power. "You thought you could challenge me?" Naruto sneered, his voice carrying across the night sky. "If you survive this, don't come back. You could never reach my level." Hunter's Crescent. 3 energy scythes, each crackling with raw power, launched from Naruto's blade. They tore through the air, finding their mark with unerring precision. "Ah!" The well-dressed man's agonized cry pierced the night as 3 massive wounds opened across his back. He plummeted from the heavens, his once immaculate suit now in tatters. Naruto watched his opponent fall, his face an impassive mask. The battle was over, and his stomach began to rumble. "I need ramen," Naruto announced before vanishing in a burst of speed. There was a flash of blue, and Naruto widened his eyes in shock as he glanced behind him to see the bloody and cut-up foe with no knives, but a bow made up of reishi. "You will stay away from my woman." "What the?" Naruto said just as the Quincy loosed his shot, to which Naruto parried the spiritual arrow before vanishing in his own flash. The Quincy flinched as he found metal lightly scraping against his neck. So, Quincy, you blew your one shot to walk away, I hope you know that. Wait, why? Naruto's eyes hardened and his heart steeled itself and he yanked. The voice of the Quincy was cut short as blood spilled and the Quincy's body fell into two pieces. What the fuck is a Quincy? Naruto thought as the sky around fell into an uneasy silence as he waited a few seconds for any more tricks or traps. After no more spiritual fluctuations, the blonde flashed back home. It was too late to cook and he wanted ramen, so he needed his wallet. Now. The atmosphere was warm as Naruto sat at the bar currently holding a warm bowl of ramen with 3 empty bowls to the side. Dozens of patrons filled out the scene with their own conversations and positive vibes. Hey granny, another. Naruto ordered as he leant back and began slurping the rest of the bowl. As he finished he let out a loud belch which made the greenette sitting next to him giggle before a frying pan was lobbed at his face. Naruto's eyes widened as he managed to move to the side at the last moment and as it flew by he reached up and caught the handle of the pan before it was launched across the street. "Yeah boss-sama, that was a close one, you can't be attacking customers like that you old hag," Naruto lectured as he closed his eyes and taunted, but due to his eyes being closed, he missed the heeled sandal smash square into his nose. "Ah!" Naruto cried out as he fell backward. "Old bitch still got aim, I see." "Damn right I do, Yangxia," said as she stepped toward the counter flexing her lithe arm. "The name is Yefurafushi, and don't you ever forget it, brat." The other customers of Tatsumaki Ramen burst into laughter or small fits of giggles due to the actions of the pair. From his position on the floor Naruto looked up. "It's good to be back, you old hag," he said with a small honest grin that turned cheeky. "How long has it been since I was back in this town?" He idly thought before pain erupted once more. What he didn't notice was Ye's veins bulged in annoyance before she hopped over the counter, landing perfectly over Naruto, his shoeless foot stamping on Naruto's chest where her sandal was placed, and she stomped hard. "You just don't learn," she growled as he ground her foot on Naruto's chest. "What's your problem, you psycho bitch? I just want some ramen. Just because you have kink for stepping on young men doesn't mean I want it," Naruto yelled out. "You will get ramen once you apologize for your disrespect." "Never." Naruto shouted as he removed the older woman's foot and got right in her face. "Now I haven't eaten good ramen in like a solid 8 years, I come to the best in town and this how I'm treated. One more bowl and then you're cut off for the week." The woman obliged. "God knows your grandmother would never forgive me for not feeding you," she thought as an old laugh flashed through her head of her childhood best friend. Naruto was taking his time as he began to stargaze as he walked through the streets of Karakura town, and as he wandered through the streets after a time he found himself standing outside an old rundown arcade. "Hum on Ichigo, Naruto, keep up." A young tomboy-coated girl hollered as she dragged both prepubescent boys along behind her. "I wonder if the pachinko machines still work," Naruto muttered before his gaze narrowed. "You might as well come out, I know you've been following me." Two pair of eyes widened, one feline the other mammalian. Footsteps began to fill out the abandoned area as Naruto turned around to see a black kimono, short skirt wearing purplinette with her hair pulled back into a simple braid. Why are you stalking me, pretty lady-san?" Naruto questioned as he arched a brow at the woman. "You are the source of the strange spiritual pressure emanating from Karakura town, and Mayuri-sama would like to cordially invite you to Sarate as a test subject." No," Naruto said before the woman's right arm at the wrist began to spin rapidly. "I've been ordered to not take no for an answer." I don't like what she said and how she said it. Naruto thought before his eyes wandered once more before his hoodie and shirt glowed bright green, showing that the blonde was manipulating the soles of his clothes to form a defense as the black-wearing woman just drilled her rotating fist into his gut. The force of the blow let loose a shockwave that fractured the nearby windows. "You know it's considered general manners to introduce oneself before fisting them," Naruto taunted before he grabbed onto his attempting kidnapper's forearm and he span to the side. He threw the girl down the street away from the rundown arcade. "What is it with crazy hot scale recently?" Naruto muttered as he released the soles of his clothes from his control, only to blush bright red. "My name is Kuritsuchi Nemu, the lieutenant of the 12th squad of the 13 Court Guard squads, the science division," the woman announced just as she reappeared in front of Naruto with her leg raised high. "Woman, you're in a skirt," Naruto shouted as he closed his eyes before crossing his arms blocking the axe kick. The force cratered the ground beneath the blonde. Naruto responded once more by grabbing a hold of the ankle and threw the woman away once more. As the Shinigami flew down the street before she could recover fully, her eyes tracked several green flashes high above her position, bouncing through the air in a zigzag pattern until the lights just stopped. "Where are you looking?" Naruto whispered into the girl's ear, causing her to tense before she felt someone else's arms lock underneath her waist before the horizontal world view went vertical, with her going headfirst into the concrete below. As the dust settled, Naruto came to a skidding stop as his gaze never left the dust cloud. As it settled, he looked on at his attacker buried headfirst into the ground. Well, that takes care of that, I guess. Man, what is up with people tonight? Naruto commented as he kicked a loose stone off to the side before he felt a burst of spiritual pressure. Brought away, Ramina. A monotone voice called out as a pillar of purple spiritual pressure filled the sky. The ground gave way and in a single flash step, Nemu appeared in front of Naruto, with two large blades resembling petals connected on either side through a chain and a large sword hilt. Who can play at that game, Naruto thought before yanking on his pendant, only this time even the chain glowed a bright green. Surgical malpractice. The scythe came into hand, but along with a chain attached onto the bottom of his weapon and seemingly wrapped loosely around his forearm. In the shadows, the feline pair of eyes narrowed at the duo. I shall not fail, Mayuri-sama. Yes, you will. She swung first, the left petal blade whipped through the as one would expect, and Naruto didn't block, he just moved to the side, slightly letting the blade pass harmlessly by. The blonde dove looking to split the emotionless girl in two, but she used her own flexibility and reflexes to sidestep and lean backwards completely to avoid Naruto's second slash coming horizontally. From her near crab-like position, she lashed out with an up kick that caught the blonde in the jaw, knocking him backwards before she sent the second blade forward with a flick of her wrist. That kick wasn't half bad. Naruto thought as he saw the right blade whipping toward him, he batted it to the side with his own scythe before he heard the rattling of chains. Glancing behind him, he noticed the initial left blade was swinging back round to try and hit his blind spot. The ground flashed green once more, signaling the use of Bringer's light. The blonde sent himself into the air. Glancing down, he noticed that both of the petal blades were following him. Do they track forever? Naruto wondered before he swung his scythe, smashing one blade away and diverting it off course, and just as he was about to swing on the other, it detonated in a fog of pink dust. Naruto gasped as he inhaled and began coughing and sputtering as he crashed into the earth below. Nemu called back her blades, the chains being absorbed by the hilt before the serrated petal blades locked back into place. Incapacitation successful. Collecting lab specimen, Nemu said as she began walking toward the new creator the blonde had made all on office. Room. A near-translucent dome appeared around the area. Tact. The ground itself seemed to rumble before the concrete moved and several spires stalagmites erupted from the ground, looking to impaling the vice captain. Nemu leapt into the air looking to avoid being impaled, only for her eyes to widen as she saw a red blur fly out of the smoke that her prey kicked up when he was supposed to be unconscious. She stepped away, but the chain connecting to the flying side looked like someone flashed a burst of green and the chain whipped forward at twice the speed, and at the last second, because of that pulse of power, the Fullbringer's weapon changed angle, causing it to slip through the defense of the vice captain. Ah! Nemu coughed up blood before she glanced over to the source of pain. Looking over to her left slightly, she saw the red scythe impaling deep in her shoulder. The largest of the three blades was currently lodged deep into the shoulder blade. As the smoke cleared slightly, Nemu could see her target launch 3 pebble stones in her general direction whilst she was in the air. Shambles. Naruto vanished from his position without a green light to accompany him and reappeared above and in the blind spot of the vice captain. The blonde's core muscles contracted as Naruto let loose the mother of all dropkicks, aimed precisely onto the back of his weapon, burying the second blade into the woman's shoulder while burying the largest blade ever deep, making it a clear through and through. The force of the blow sent the Shinigami careening toward the second pebble's position. Shambles. He vanished once more and reappeared in front of his opponent who had flashed him moments earlier. Performing an air walk as his bases began to channel his power. He took a stance and just as she came into range he smirked. Nemu Kuretsuchi, right? Naruto half questioned. Nice try and better luck next time. The blonde threw an elbow and a fist forward, smashing into middle of the sternum and the solar plexus. The force caused spittle to spray and the scythe to be knocked loose, but not before tearing through flesh, leaving the left arm almost severed from the shoulder. Counter shock. Naruto shouted as sparks of electricity began forming between the fist and elbow before electrocuting the Shinigami. The screams were short-lived before the vice captain passed out and fell skull first to the ground. Naruto kicked off the air and in a flash of light he landed just beneath Nemu, catching her before she could hit the ground. He glanced at her only to notice that she was unconscious, her eyes had rolled backwards, but she was breathing. She was bleeding a lot from his side. She's one of Ichi's nakama. Naruto thought curiously before he shrank his room down and focused repairing the damage his blade had done. His fingers twitched as he watched the sinews reattached and repair under the blonde's watchful gaze. After a few minutes Naruto watched the lightly scarred shoulder wound fully closed and as he turned to walk away his vision swam and blurred before he too passed out and collapsed. The poison. Naruto thought back to when that Shinigami's sword burst released some toxin of some kind. The blonde's last sight were gleaming cat eyes that shone from the darkness. The black cat stepped out of the shadows. Well, now looks like this made my job easy. The cat muttered to itself. The 15-year-old Naruto stood next to a pink-haired woman Lynette Charlotte, and on the other side of the blonde was a man named Joko, the eldest of the three. All three were bound and cuffed and chained before seemingly a panel of magicians. The three were vexed, and their spiritual power burst forth the entire room from the panel to the overseers felt it, most struggled to keep their head proud and high. Pinks, yellows and orange filled the hall. Before the three chained Fullbringers was their master Arona, the Fullbringer that had found them and taught them about their origins. The old man was unmoving before them, still as a sheet in a breezeless forest. "Please restrain yourselves, this is not what we wanted." One of the judges pleaded as the pressure scared them all. "Lies." Lynette snapped back as her pink aura nearly doubled its output and the building began to shake. "This is your dream for our kind, splayed, dead or powerless before you." Joko spoke up, his deep voice carrying weight along with power. "You want us afraid and cowering beneath your boot." As Lin's and Joko's powers began to plateau, Naruto's kept spiking. His rage at the situation before him was still growing. Master Arona used his awesome power to help keep the world safe in a world that hates or fears our kind. "And this is how you treat him, how you treat our kind." Lynette continued with a snarl. "What must we do to be good enough?" Naruto spoke up for the first time, nothing but a whisper, but his words were heard by all. The blonde teen glanced at his deceased master. "Is this where the high road takes us?" he muttered. "Because if so then I say as I have said too many times before." The blonde eyes flashed green, briefly paused as he unlocked the cuffs with a mental command. His fellow Fullbringers did the same, and as three metal clanks hit the ground the entire room held their breath. "Never again," Naruto said as his pendant and chain formed into his triple-bladed scythe and landed in his hands. The translucent dome emanated from the blonde, taking over the entire building. Naruto stared down this magic council, the jeering observers all shut their mouths in fear. A single tear trailed down the blonde's face, his eyes flashed a dark green, and something happened. Naruto Uzumaki, a 15-year-old immigrant from Japan living on the streets of France ever since he ran away from home after the death of his mother, the son of a billionaire absentee father. That boy, his power just quadrupled as all the magicians standing fell to their knees and those in panel who sat high above the Fullbringers. "Naruto?" Lynette whispered. "Lil bro?" Joko said a little louder. Naruto ignored both questions and stood tall. His entire aura changed, his fellow Fullbringers could hardly sense the blonde's spiritual pressure, it's nearly just out of their reach, but they both sensed the same thing and had the same thought. "Monstrous. You think one knee is enough?" Naruto muttered as he focused more power on the mages. What no one knew, not even Naruto himself, what stood before the magicians and his nakama was a shinobi of old, a warrior who fought gods and demons, the Nanadame Hokage. Naruto the veteran glanced at his palm and arching a curious brow at Jashin-like weapon being in his hand. The shinobi gaze then focused on the scene before him, glancing at his incarnation sensei, and memories flooded forth when Jiraiya was murdered, of when Kakashi died to an Otsutsuki. His gaze fell upon the council before him. Bigot. Ingrate. Sycophant. Worms. Naruto turned around, slowly completing a 360 of the room and made sure to slowly lock eyes with every mage in this room as he slowly went over his insults for them. "So small and pathetic, any one of us could smite you with a step." There was one singular snort of disbelief. "Mama." Lynette laughed at the stupid mage who just sealed their own fates, while Joko went and picked up their master's body. Naruto's gaze just dropped several degrees. He said no more words and raised his scythe and leveled it by his side as he widened his stance into a traditional Iaijutsu stance. Naruto inhaled a deep breath before exhaling. Power began flow into Naruto's weapon, each scythe willing with a blonde spiritual pressure. He knitted and weaved his power, his very essence, with his scythe, and three larger scythes made of energy burst around each blade. Witch hunter. Several things happened. The scythes touched not a soul, but Naruto's room extended to 400 meters in diameter. Bolts of lights followed Naruto's blade, leaving the body of every mage on the ground level with the Fullbringers. Joko leapt into the air. Lin did the splits and stuck low. The slash passing over and under with relative ease. The building and the surrounding Pyrenees mountains were cleaved in two. The room was in shock as the top half of the room just floated in the air and the bladed weapon did not touch the walls at all. The blonde just looked at the seemingly unharmed magicians who were stunned into silence at the building being in two, but they weren't cut. Naruto just looked on impassively before turning back toward the council. "Learn from this day, you are not untouchable." Naruto warned before his eyes flashed green once more and the power decreased dramatically and the teen stumbled forward before catching himself. Outside, the mountains cleaved by the extended room began to have gravity bring them back to earth. The blonde turned to Lin and offered her a hand back to her feet. "Lin gets us out of here, will ya?" Naruto requested as he glanced at the older teen who nodded. The blonde turned back toward the Magician's Guild. This time, you're lucky, because the old man wanted us to see the world through his lenses. Look at how vast the world, despite how small we make it. But that said, the trio vanished from the collapsing building, now that the room was gone with the blonde. It was on this day that over 200 magicians had been deported, their mana stripped from their very souls. October 23, the magician massacre occurred, and only one life was lost that night. Naruto opened his eyes and felt a small pressure on his chest, in an unfamiliar space with a cat sitting on his chest looking down at him. Welcome back to the land of the living, Naruto-san. It's too early for a talking cat that knows my name somehow. But where's the fun in that? Wouldn't want to know about a talking cat that knows your name. Considering I just had dream about my dead master, probably not right now. Naruto snapped lightly before he began to slowly sit up. Why do I feel so heavy? He thought before chalking it up to the poison that Shinigami used on him. HMPH, the cat grumbled before flashing its claws. Naruto's eyes widened, oh hell no. He shouted before tapping into the soul of the sheet he had over him. He forced it to life and made wrap up the homicidal cat. The black cat sliced out the sheets with ease, but the blonde had already moved and was back on his feet. I was reinforcing that, and you cut through like butter. You must be pretty strong for a talking cat. Naruto said with an intrigued look across his face. What's your name, half pint? Naruto asked. The cat coughed into its paw and recomposed itself off the question and looked up at the human. The name's Yuruchi-o and I'm a woman. Smoke began to release, and Naruto got a sense of deja vu before a long-legged naked ebony-skinned goddess stood before him. That was sitting on my chest. Naruto's thought broke his brain as he could not compute. Paths are this way and that's where I'm heading, come join me when you're ready. She chuckled at the boy's face. Huh? Ah, still got it, she thought in triumph before spinning on her heel and leaving the room. Man, Urahara better not be late, she muttered to herself as she headed to the hot spring in her own Karakura town hideout. The end. 005. The doctor is in the building. The steamy air of the hidden hot spring cave was a stark contrast to the crisp pre-dawn chill of the training ground beneath Urahara's shop. Naruto, now in fresh training clothes, cracked his neck and rolled his shoulders. Across from him, Yuruchi stood with her arms crossed, a confident smirk on her face. Perched on a stack of crates, Urahara watched, his fan forgotten in his lap. Alright, boya, Yuruchi called out. No fancy weapons. Just speed. Let's see what you're made of. Hey, I'm plenty fast on my own, Naruto shot back with a competitive grin. He settled into a low stance, the sole of his pendant quietly humming against his chest, waiting for its call. Begin. Urahara announced. Yuruchi vanished. Not a flash, not a sound. She was simply behind him, her hand chopping toward his neck. Naruto didn't turn. A burst of vibrant green bringer light flared beneath his feet and he shot forward in a sharp jagged arc, the thump of displaced air marking his path. Yuruchi's hand passed through empty air. Oh? She hummed, impressed. She vanished again. This time, she appeared above him. Naruto's head snapped up and with another boom flash, he launched himself vertically to meet her. He became a blur, Yuruchi, a phantom of silent, efficient shunpo. Naruto, a raw, explosive force of bringer light, his path zigzagging and unpredictable as he rebounded off the very air. Flash step. She was behind him. Boom flash. He was 5 meters to the left. Flash step. She was in front, a roundhouse kick aimed at his ribs. Boom flash. He dropped low and shot backwards. Fascinating, Urahara murmured, scribbling in his notepad. It's not a step but a propulsive event. The green light is the soul's energy being used as a thruster. He has to actively push off each time. She landed and lunged forward. Naruto leant back, his hands touching the ground. His leg lashed out with a kick as his other leg kicked off the ground for more momentum. Boom flash. The first leg missed Yuruchi by a hairbreadth. She swerved, avoiding the much faster following leg. Naruto legs from the knee down shimmered green. Still on his hand, he turned, lashing out with a twister of kicks. The Orisihi slipped between the first few strikes but was forced to retaliate. Forearm met shin repeatedly. The terrain fractured around them with every shockwave. Their strong Naruto complemented upside down before his hands pulsed green. Boom flash. He closed the distance sharply. His first foot struck her chin, the next hit to the gut. The flash goddess was launched into the air in an uncontrolled fashion. Golden panicked eyes found his, only for a second later to be filled with confidence. She even stuck her tongue out and pulled down an eyelid before flash stepping. Yuruchi landed lightly in the center, her grin widening. Not bad. Your raw acceleration is impressive and creative. Now let's see you handle this. Second level. Twin Lotus Flash. The air seemed to tear. Two perfect afterimages of her formed on either side of Naruto, with a real one striking from above. It was too fast, too seamless to dodge with a single burst of bringer light. Naruto's eyes narrowed. This was the moment. He didn't try to outrun it. Instead, his hand snapped to the pendant on his chest. Surgical malpractice. Room. In a flash of green, the crimson scythe was in his hand. But more importantly, the near-translucent blue dome of his room exploded outwards, instantly encompassing the entire training ground. The change was immediate and absolute. Inside the room, Naruto didn't need to push off anything. He didn't use bringer light. He simply moved. As Yuruchi descended, her form a blur even to trained eyes, Naruto became a ghost within his own domain. He flowed around her kick, his feet not pushing off the ground, but gliding across it. He wasn't faster than her shunpo in a straight line, but within the room, his movements required no wind-up, no propulsion. He could change direction, accelerate, and decelerate with a thought, his body responding to his will as if the air itself were carrying him. He weaved between the two afterimages, and as Yuruchi's real kick came down, he was already leaning just outside its trajectory, his movement so effortless it seemed to defy physics. His free hand made a simple motion. 2 fingers extended. Tacked. Stone spikes ripped from the ground. Yuruchi's eyes widened slightly, using her immense control of her body to halt. Naruto blushed slightly at the woman's powerful legs. She caught his stare and smirked before vanishing. Naruto's eyes widened, he felt her enter the space behind him. She launched a fist into the back of his skull. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Shambles. Isuke's eyes narrowed as the pair swapped places. Yuruchi span on a dime, clapping her hands together, catching the scythe between her palms. Not bad, got a better killer instinct than Ichigo. Naruto smirked as he put more strength into his blade. The scythe shook in her grip. You ain't seen nothing yet. Yuruchi smirked at the challenge as she guided the blade to the ground with a sidestep. Swinging her foot, she caught Naruto's wrist. His weapon launched from his grasp. Damn it. Naruto cursed as Yuruchi was on him in a flash. Fist in his face. The shockwave blew Naruto's hair back. What the? She pondered as a green chain flared into existence. Her eyes trailed the chain made of Ryatsu, hovered around the boy and connecting to his side. He smirked as he tugged on the chain with a finger. The effect was almost too quick. The weapons flew back towards her like a buzzsaw. She leant back, letting her flexibility reign as the fullbring flew centimeters from her nose. Naruto's hand snapped around the pole arm before a flurry of slashes that the old soul was able to dodge like a shinobi of old. Isuke's eye caught gashes appearing all over the room-covered space. Boom. Her foot slammed into his upswinging weapon, cratering the earth. There was a moment of stunned silence. Yuruchi's foot planted between 2 of the blades, halting the weapon. Her fist half an inch from his temple. I win. Naruto arched a brow. Do you? As the third rung on the side lightly scraped against her inner thigh. You would need more than that to take me down. Would I wonder? Yuruchi's eyes narrowed. But before she could speak, the sound of Kisuke's fan snapped her out of the challenge. My, what an interesting little exhibition. Kisuke praised. Naruto relaxed as he released his fullbring. In a flash of light, his pendant was restored. You're crazy fast, lady, he said, a triumphant smirk on his face. But inside my world, I don't need to run. Yuruchi straightened up, brushing dust from her shoulder. She looked from the crater to Naruto, her predatory smile shifting into one of deep professional respect. She had seen countless powers, but the sheer tactical utility of this was staggering. Kido, she stated, her voice cutting through the quiet. Urahara had stopped writing, his head tilted so far his hat nearly fell off. Oh. Not Aikido, Yuruchi clarified, circling Naruto. But the principle is the same. He creates a bounded field, a territory he absolutely controls. Inside it, the normal rules of movement don't seem to apply to him. He teleports, he moves without effort. That's a high-level spatial manipulation art. For a human to wield that instinctively. She stopped in front of him. You're not just a brawler. You're an unrefined master of a terrifyingly precise art. Naruto blinked. So pass granted. Urahara hopped down from the crates, his fan snapping open with a gleeful whap. My. Far from it. This makes you a walking anomaly. A human with hollow Ryatsu and a personal reality marble that activates with a weapon. The research possibilities are endless. Garuful Kisuke, your Mayuri is showing. Yuruchi snipped. Careful Yuruchi, your Shunshui is showing. He did not miss a beat. His companion's jaw dropped. While Naruto looked clueless. Isuke raised his hand in defeat as they both heard a growl that promised pain. My bad, he held up his hands before turning to Naruto again. The things the things we can learn, Naruto-kun, will be monumental, and it can help me get a grasp on Chad's and Orihime abilities. Naruto looked at Yuruchi's unamused face and then at Urahara's gleeful, shadowed one. His peaceful homecoming was definitely over. The bell above Urahara shop's door chimed softly as Naruto stepped out into the late afternoon sun, the wooden Jetta clacking on the step. He stretched, a satisfied grin on his face after a productive if exhausting training session. At that exact moment, a group of 4 figures turned the corner, their presence a solid wall of disciplined, sharp spiritual pressure. Thump. Naruto's shoulder connected solidly with the largest of the group, a short white-haired kid man with a fierce scowl. Naruto froze for a moment. Sit upon the frozen heavens, 2 young voices cried out. Cold, frost, a snap of heat before an unsettling hatred for someone. A serpentine ice beast roared, snapping him from his daze. He's a soul in a faux body. The hell? Naruto thought. Hey. Watch where you're going, you little Ikaku, Madaram began, his hand instinctively moving toward the hilt of his zanpakuto. The group halted. Renji Aburai sighed, already looking exasperated. Michike Asagawa fanned himself delicately, a look of mild distaste on his face. But it was the shortest of them, Toshiro Hitsugaya, who froze, his teal eyes narrowing to slits as they locked onto Naruto. A tense silence fell, broken only by the distant sounds of Karakura town. Hitsugaya took a half step forward, his voice cold and precise, cutting through Ikaku's bluster. You. Human. Naruto merely arched a blonde brow, a lazy, unimpressed expression on his face. Why, Hitsugaya continued, his gaze intensifying, do I sense hollow Reiatsu coming from you? The air grew thick. Renji's posture straightened, his own senses now on high alert. Ikaku's scowl deepened, and Yumichika's fan stilled. Naruto's smirk returned, wider this time, a flash of emerald glinting deep within his blue eyes. He didn't look at the other fake humans or Baldi clearly reaching for an invisible weapon. His gaze was fixed on Toshiro, utterly fearless. Whoa there, Chibi-san, Naruto drawled, his tone dripping with playful insolence. That's a pretty personal question. I don't really hang out with strangers, you know, stranger danger, right? As the last word left his lips, his right hand drifted up, his fingers casually closing around the obsidian pendant at his chest. Crack. The spiritual pressure in the street didn't just increase, it changed. It was dense, heavy, and rough, smothering the sharp orderly Reiatsu of the Shinigami. They all felt at its core was an undeniable corrosive taint that screamed hollow. They all realized what he meant, he was a stranger and the danger. An ominous spectral green light began to glow from within Naruto's eyes, casting his smirk in a sinister light. Orange wisps of Reiatsu leaked of his body. The 4 Shinigami tensed as they reached for their zanpakuto, only to find them sealed away as they were in their gigai. I'm nothing more than a simple human, Naruto said, his voice a low, resonant hum that belied his words. Nothing more, nothing less. There was a rustle of air. The dark hand, graceful and firm, clamped around Naruto's wrist, pulling his grip from the pendant. Iruchi Shihoin stood beside him, having appeared without a sound. She didn't look at the stunned Shinigami. Her amused, knowing gaze was solely on Naruto. Now, boya. Picking fights with the Gate 13 is not on the agenda today. Yeah, how about I buy you dinner instead? Iruchi arched a brow, her golden eyes littered with amusement. Bold move, hitting on someone stronger than you. Naruto raised his head, smirking, releasing his pendant. Meh, I got my taste from my old man, we can't help ourselves around powerful women. So troublesome, she chided, though her tone was light. Her free hand lightly patted his whiskered cheeks. Could even afford me? I eat a lot. Naruto shrugged. I'm 18 and a freelancing doctor, well apprentice, but I get paid so. Doctor? That's got come with a story, no? Over dinner? Chiki beat me in a spar and we'll see. That's not a no. It's not a yes either, now get out of here. TCH. You're no fun, he grumbled, but he relaxed his stance, letting Iruchi guide his hand away. He glanced back at the 4 captains and lieutenants, who were still staring, a mixture of shock, anger, and deep suspicion on their faces. With a final casual wave, Naruto stepped around them. See you around, Shinigami-san. Try not to strain anything in those faux bodies of yours. And with that, he continued down the street, hands in his pockets, leaving a very confused and deeply unsettled squad of Soul Reapers in his wake. Iruchi offered them a dazzling, unreadable smile before flashing away, leaving them with only one burning question. What, in the name of the Soul King, was that? The neon signs of Karakura town had begun to blur into a river of light beneath Naruto's feet as he bounded through the air. Each step was a boom flash of emerald light, the displaced hair ruffling his hair as he soared from rooftop to rooftop, his mind already on the prospect of a warm bed at Orihim's. Then the world tore open. It wasn't a single tear, but a synchronized rupture. A dozen jagged, black voids Gargantua screamed into existence in the sky above the town's central park. The air grew heavy, saturated with a malice so thick it was difficult to breathe. Before the first shriek of a hollow could even echo, the Minos forest manifested. Not a glimpse, but a full, terrifying view, an endless plain of white masks and black bodies, stretching into a nightmarish horizon. And from it, they spilled forth. Not the simple, bestial hollows he was used to. These were just 12 of them. Each was a unique monument of terror. One with a segmented scorpion's tail and blades for arms, another whose mask was a weeping tragedy, with tendrils that writhed like a nest of snakes. A third, a hulking beast with a boar-like mask and tusk the size of sharpened lampist. An undead centaur with a burning skull, blackening its mask. A twisted flying amalgamation, alongside other monster shapes. Naruto skidded to a halt in midair, the air pulsing green beneath his feet as he held his position. His lazy grin vanished, replaced by a flat analytical calm. The playful light in his ocean blue eyes hardened into chips of glacial ice. "This city never really sleeps," he muttered, his voice a low rumble lost in the descending spiritual pressure. "Or I guess my little show of force drew the big game. Welp, I gotta clean up my mess." He didn't reach for his pendant. Not yet. Instead, he landed lightly on a television antenna, the metal groaning under his weight. He began bouncing on the balls of his feet, a boxer loosening up. His spiritual pressure, which usually felt like a dormant volcano, now began to seep out, not the corrosive hollow-tainted dread he'd shown the Shinigami, but something older. Sharper. The burst of killing intent along with spiritual pressure spilled forth like a valve safety removed. The world trembled. The hollows froze for a moment, the fear of a powerful foe, but a powerful foe fueled their evolution. Primal impulses raged. Fear versus hunger. Hunger overrode fear. The lead Ajuchas, the one with the bladed arms, let out a chittering roar that shattered the windows of the surrounding offices. It lunged, crossing the distance in a blur, its arm blade slicing down in a cross-shaped arc meant to bisect him. He's just one human. Naruto didn't block. He didn't dodge. He flowed. The burst of bringer light flared, and he shot forward, not away, but inside the creature's guard. "It's been a while since an Ajuchas tried to eat me, and so many who did I piss off in a previous life." He spun on a dime, his leg whipping around in a devastating roundhouse kick that connected with the side of the hollow's mask. The sound was not a crack, but a boom like a thunderclap. The Ajuchas was thrown sideways, crashing through the brick facade of a bank, its mask fractured. He landed, already kicking off again. Boom flash. He appeared above the weeping mask hollow, driving a heel down onto its skull, sending it plummeting to the street below in a shower of asphalt. Jade green light flittered and he was gone once again. He vanished from the path of a corrosive spitball from the snake tendril hollow, reappearing behind it to deliver a double-fisted hammer blow to its spine. He was a ghost, a jade green will-o'-the-wisp dancing amidst a forest of monsters. He used their size and numbers against them, ricocheting off their own limbs and bodies, his path an unpredictable, zigzagging storm of concussive force. A flicker of green, the thump of displaced air, and another Ajuchas would reel back, wounded and roaring in frustration. How is he doing this? The weeping hollow cursed as it looked at one of its pack get a two-footed stomp to the boar mask. But they were Ajuchas for a reason. They learned. "By what big tusk shame you can't even touch me." He taunted. The blonde launched off the boar masked brute's chest, the scorpion-tailed hollow he'd first struck was waiting. Its tail, moving faster than sight, lashed out. Naruto twisted in midair, but the stinger still grazed his side, tearing through his hoodie and drawing a line of fire across his ribs. He grunted, landing roughly a dozen meters away, his hand instinctively going to the wound. It was shallow, but it was a hit. The 12 pairs of glowing red and yellow eyes focused on him, their predatory intelligence clear. They were hurting him now, coordinating their attacks. The blonde straightened up, wiping a speck of blood from his lip. His eyes glowed green as his wound matched his ocular hue. Steam hissed as the wound sealed closed. The color dimmed, leaving freshly mended flesh. Naruto had lazily looked up at the surrounding hollows. The flaming skull-mask hollow mouth opened as a golden Zero began to charge. The playful brawler was gone. The tactician had taken over. "Alright," he said, his voice cutting through the growls and hisses. "Playtime's over." His right hand snapped up, his fingers closing around the obsidian pendant at his chest. Surgical malpractice. The flash of viridian light erupted, and the crimson scythe was in his hand just as the burning gold Zero fired, searing through the night sky towards him. He didn't dodge. He met it. The tri-bladed scythe clashed with the beam, and with a surge of force, he cleaved through it, splitting the destructive energy in two. The bifurcated beam screamed past him, carving molten trenches into the landscape behind. He's splitting the Zero. A mere human. A hollow chittered. The flaming hollow roared as more power flowed into his Zero. As the Zero continued to pour forth from the hollow, Naruto's left hand rose, a translucent blue-tinted halo forming in his palm. Boom. The dome exploded outwards, instantly swallowing the entire park. His fingers snapped. Shambles. He swapped places with the black-masked hollow that was still firing the Zero. The hollow now stood where Naruto had been, disoriented. But the Zero it was emitting no longer had Naruto's scythe to split it. The instant the connection to its user was broken by the swap, the twin beams still in the air collapsed back into one, solidifying into a single undivided pillar of annihilation. A pillar that was now pointing directly back at its creator. With its own user no longer fueling it, the Zero surged forward one last time whole, concentrated, and unstoppable. The burning masked hollow turned only to see his own Zero. The Zero dissipated, revealing a head no more. The hollow began to fade as it crashed into the ground. Naruto now beside another hollow. He didn't hesitate. With a twist of his hips he brought his weapon down. Amputate. The flying amalgamation screeched as it lost its head. Its Reishi bond severed, but it lived. Naruto landed on its falling body as the creature fell from the sky like a plane without a cockpit. Naruto stood scythe in hand, grinning wild as the remaining hollows surged towards him from varying angles. The amputated hollow's body hit the ground and Naruto rolled off the body, his sneakers skidding off the asphalt. He simply moved, gliding across the ground without a sound, his feet not touching the pavement. Boom flash. Bringer's light ignited. The scorpion-tailed hollow lunged, but Naruto was already behind it, his scythe leaving a deep gash across its back. With the rotation of his wrist his body followed the motion, shifting and maintaining his rotation. Amputate. The stinger severed before it could even finish its strike. He extended his index and pinky fingers. The lime green charge snapped to life. Naruto slammed his palm down on the back of the scorpion hollow. Counter shock. The night filled with wails from the beast as it spasmed and cooked on the spiritual shock. The ground pounded as another hollow pounced. He raised his free hand, 2 fingers extended. Tact. The very street itself answered his call. Pillars of asphalt and concrete erupted beneath hollow mid-leap. Naruto hopped off the back of the downed scorpion. He stared coolly at the hollow as it clawed at the stalagmites, piercing its abdomen. Why can't I break this? It roared as it swiped at the green glowing concrete. Things in the world of the living can't harm you normally. Naruto hummed as he twirled his weapon. But get this, everything has a soul, and if it has a soul. Naruto's index finger recoiled slowly, leaving him flipping the bird to the hollow. Several more spikes erupted. The ground ripped and tore until the mask was punctured. Leaving the creature aloft like a dark effigy for its compatriots. Impaling them through their torsos and holding their shrieking forms aloft like grotesque trophies. The boar roared as the weeping hollow tried to charge at Zero. The tusked hollow charged just as the weeping hollow fired. Shambles. He vanished. The weeping hollow's red Zero fired, but as it stood next to its impaled comrade with the boar hollow mid-charge point-blank range. The boar-masked hollow's tusk took the brunt of the burning blast, but its momentum could not be halted as it collided with the weeping hollow, sending them both sprawling. Inside the room, he was no longer a fighter. He was a surgeon. And this was his operating theater. He began to spin his pole arm between his fingers, slow and steady. The remaining pack of Otsutsuki weren't a threat anymore. They were a complicated procedure, and he was just beginning the incision. The remaining hollows stalled as Naruto took a step forward. His weapon's revolutions picked up pace as he twirled the blade into his other hand. Your soul is mine. The centipede link leader chittered as its 4 claws struck. Sparks flew as the chittering hollow pincer blade was blocked by the flat of the top side. Green-tinted eyes glared between the blades. Soul energy glowed from his now free right hand. He vibrated the energy until it crackled into a green static shaping along his hand. Naruto danced with the creature as it loosed an unholy flurry. Naruto glided around the creature before his fingers extended straight, crackling in green electricity. Emma stab. Naruto's hand pierced the hollow's mask dead center. He watched the light fade as its spiritual pressure plummeted. Before it could dissipate, his muscles bulged as he spun on the dime, whipping the centipede-like hollow into the boar hollow. The centipede flew as his hand was freed with a wet rip. The Otsutsuki collided. One laid out, the other vanished back into the ether. The scorpion, the weeping, and the boar remained, their forms battered and bleeding. The coordinated hunt in their eyes had been replaced by the primal fear of cornered prey. As 3 jagged gargantas ripped open behind them, the wailing voids offering a final desperate escape. The scorpion snarled. We'll be back, ninja. It screeched. The darkness eagerly swallowed them up, the portals snapping shut with a sound like tearing silk, leaving behind only the scent of static and the echo of their retreat. Naruto waited, his senses stretched taut, but no further attack came. The park was silent save for the writhing, guttural screeches of the flying amalgamation, its headless body flailing on the ground. He let out a slow breath, the tension leaving his shoulders. With a thought, he cancelled the room. The moment the blue dome vanished, the suppressed consequences of his surgery became brutally real. The spiritual stitches he had imposed disappeared and the full, unhealed wounds manifested at once. A torrent of dark, viscous blood erupted from the flying hollow's severed neck, pooling on the shattered asphalt. Its innate healing factor, no longer suppressed, surged in a grotesque, uncontrolled spasm. The stump of its neck bulged, flesh and reishi bubbling and expanding in a frantic futile attempt to regenerate a head that was no longer there. It was a horrific twitching mockery of life. Naruto watched, his expression one of detached clinical assessment. Without a word, he flicked his wrist. The crimson scythe flew from his grasp, a precise scarlet dart that found its mark with a wet thunk, lodging deep in the center of the creature's mask. The frantic writhing ceased instantly. The final shuddering sigh escaped the dissolving body. For a second, too, it remained, a monument to his work, before it too began to break apart into shimmering motes of fading reishi, returning to the ether from whence it came. Silence reclaimed the park, absolute and heavy, broken only by the distant wail of human sirens, finally responding to the chaos. The surgeon's procedure was complete. He looked at the surrounding damage and winced. "Really need to look into structural engineering," he muttered. He knew with his powers he could repair the damage, but with actual knowledge on how things are built. "The last time I tried I opened a sinkhole in downtown San Francisco." Naruto shuddered. "I had to fix a lot of bones that day." His phone began to vibrate. Reaching into his pocket, his eyes scanned the lit-up screen. Caller ID. Karakura Hospital. Naruto's heart drummed hard for a moment. "Orihime?" His mind thought idly. He answered as he raised the phone to his ear. "Hello, is this Mr. Uzumaki?" "Speaking." "My name is Raiken Ishida. I am the medical director of Karakura Hospital." Naruto's eyes widened. "Medical director?" "That's what I said. Now I know you're set to start your apprenticeship soon and want to extend a tour as your time will be split between here and any outsource clinics." As Naruto's adrenaline settled and his worry for his cousin cooled. "Alright, when would tour be for?" "We're in no rush, but perhaps sometime this week. I have an opening this Friday." "Friday it is then." "Excellent, I'll have my secretary message you the details." "Right, see you then." He disconnected the call and pocketed the phone. Naruto glanced over his shoulder, casting a suspicious gaze at a passing cloud. He stared a moment before shaking his head. Boom flash. Jade lit up from his sneakers and he was gone. The lock on Orihime's apartment clicked open with a soft snick. Naruto slipped inside, moving with the quiet heavy tread of utter exhaustion. The day, the spar with Yuruchi, the confrontation with the Shinigami, the brutal surgery on a pack of ajuchas weighed on him like a lead cloak. The apartment was dark and silent, the only light a soft glow from the streetlights filtering through the blinds. His stomach growled, a loud complaint in the quiet. As he took off his sneakers, his eyes landed on the small kitchen counter. The plate sat there, covered in cling film. Under it was a veritable mountain of food, a carefully crafted rice bowl with remnants of teriyaki chicken and steamed vegetables, a small side of salad, and 2 onigiri. A sticky note was stuck to the film, written in Orihime's looping handwriting. "Naruto-kun. I hope training wasn't too rough. Saved you dinner. Don't forget to shower, I bet you smell like a battlefield." "Orihime." The tired, genuine smile touched his lips. "Battlefield. You have no idea, Hime." He didn't even bother heating it up. He devoured the food standing at the counter, the flavors a comforting blur. The shower came next, a necessary ritual. The hot water stung the shallow cut on his ribs, now little more than a pink line, and washed away the grime, blood, and lingering spiritual residue of the day. He emerged in a cloud of steam, pulling on a pair of soft sweepants, his bare torso still damp. Every muscle screamed for rest. His mind, usually a whirlwind of tactics and energy, was a blissful empty void. He didn't turn on the light in his borrowed room, just shuffled towards the familiar shape of the bed in the near darkness, his eyes already closed. He pulled back the duvet and collapsed into the welcoming softness with a grateful sigh. And immediately froze. The bed was occupied. And warm. Very warm. His sleep-addled brain, having shut down all higher functions, took a few seconds to reboot and process the data. "What's that smell?" "Strawberries," Naruto thought as his nose twitched. An eye peeked open. The sea hare. There was a distinct, shapely lump in the bed that was definitely not a pillow. A very soft, very curvaceous lump that radiated a pleasant heat. He could feel the smooth skin of a leg against his own. Awareness returned like a bucket of ice water. "What the?" Before he could move, the lump shifted. A mop of strawberry blonde hair emerged from the other side of the pillow, followed by a sleepy, stunningly beautiful face. Golden brown eyes, heavy with sleep, fluttered open and focused on him with lazy confusion. Naruto's brain short-circuited. He was face to face with a woman he had never seen before. A very attractive, very present woman who was currently in his bed. She blinked slowly, a small, amused smirk playing on her lips as she took in his wide-eyed, deer-in-headlights expression. Well, hello there," she murmured, her voice a sleep rough and purr. She made no move to scramble away or cover herself, instead propping her head on a hand, the duvet dipping to reveal a tantalizing amount of cleavage. "You're a nice surprise." A lot more interesting than the stuffed animals I usually find in my bed. Naruto finally found his voice, though it came out as a strangled croak. This is my room. The woman's smirk widened. She had the air of a cat that had found a particularly interesting new toy. Is it? Orihime-chan said her cousin was away at some kind of training camp. I'm Ranjiku, by the way. Her house guest. Her gaze drifted down his bare torso, appreciative and entirely unashamed. And you must be the famous cousin. My. Orihime-chan left out the best details. Naruto remained perfectly still, caught between the instinct to leap out of bed and the paralyzing realization that any sudden movement would make the situation infinitely more awkward. I can go, he managed, his face heating up. His leg already moving to slink out. Ranjiku let out a low, melodious laugh and actually shifted closer, her warmth seeping into him. Wah, he choked. Don't be silly. It's a big bed. And you look like you've been run over by a herd of minnows. She reached out and poked one of his whiskered cheeks. Naruto chuckled awkwardly. Something like that. Just try to keep your hands to yourself, handsome. Mostly. With a final impish wink, she rolled over, presenting her back and pulling the duvet up to her shoulders, as if sharing a bed with a stranger was the most natural thing in the world. Naruto lay rigid on his back, staring at the ceiling, all traces of sleep utterly banished. His peaceful homecoming had just taken another wildly unexpected turn. He had a feeling his life in Karakura Town was never, ever going to be boring. The end. Chapter 6. Two of a kind, Ichimaru's shadow. Naruto blinked awake, consciousness returning like a slow, fuzzy tide. The deep, soul-deep exhaustion from the previous day had glued him to the mattress, and his brain was the last thing to boot up. His vision was a blur of soft morning light and indistinct shapes. The curvy, peach-hued silhouette moved near the foot of the bed, bending over. He blinked again, his eyes struggling to focus, the sleep grit making everything soft-edged. He blinked a third time, and the world snapped into devastatingly clear, high-definition focus. Ranjiku was bent at the waist, pulling up a pair of black lace underwear, the delicate fabric stark against her sun-kissed skin. The graceful curve of her spine, the swell of her hips, the long powerful line of her legs, it was a vision that short-circuited his still rebooting nervous system. The hot flush erupted from his neck to the tips of his ears. His eyes shot wide open for a single, breathtaking second before he squeezed them shut, committing to the bit that he was still asleep. Too late. She straightened up, the motion fluid and unconcerned, and glanced over her shoulder. A slow, predatory smirk spread across her lips as she took in his rigid form and tightly closed eyes. Good morning, handsome, she purred, her voice still husky with sleep but laced with amusement. Her golden brown eyes, sharp and knowing, deliberately trailed down the length of his body, lingering for a few long, appreciative moments on the very prominent tent pitched in his sweetpants. Not bad at all, she added, the words a low, approving hum that vibrated in the quiet room. Before he could even form a strangled thought, let alone a response, she gave a playful little wiggle as she finished adjusting her underwear, then skipped toward the door. She paused at the frame, throwing a final impish wink over her shoulder. Try to think cold thoughts. Or don't. Your call. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving a faint scent of strawberries and sheer unadulterated confidence in her wake. The moment she was gone, Naruto's eyes snapped open. He stared at the ceiling for a single, mortified second before his own traitorous body demanded acknowledgement. He glanced down. He was, to put it plainly, at full mast. The thin fabric of his sweetpants left absolutely nothing to the imagination. A low, guttural groan of utter despair escaped his lips. He snatched the pillow from beside his head and, with a cry of frustrated embarrassment, slammed it down onto his own face with enough force to probably crack a normal person's nose, wishing desperately that he could just suffocate himself and be done with it. From the other side of the door, he could hear her melodious laugh, bright and clear, echoing down the hallway. The scent of miso soup and freshly cooked rice filled Orihime's small apartment, a comforting contrast to the spiritual turmoil of the previous night. Orihime hummed to herself, carefully arranging grilled fish on 2 plates, her back to the hallway. The sound of a door sliding open and shut with unusual force made her turn, a bright good morning, Naruto-kun. Already on her lips. The greeting died in her throat. Her cousin was stalking out of his room, his face buried in a folded pillow he was clutching over his nose and mouth. His blonde hair was a wild mess, his shoulders were hunched up to his ears, and he moved with the single-minded, desperate intensity of a shinobi evading a sensor barrier. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge the food, didn't even seem to breathe. His face covered but she could feel the radiating embarrassment. He beelined for the washroom, slid the door open just enough to slip through, and slammed it shut. A second later, the distinct powerful sound of the shower turning on rumbled through the wall. Orihime stood frozen, a spatula held limply in her hand. Her brain, always a unique and wonderful place, began connecting dots. The shared room. Ranjiku's presence. Her cousin's current state of extreme pillow-clutching distress. A brilliant scarlet blush ignited across her cheeks and spread down her neck. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of dawning horror and acute embarrassment, slowly pivoted from the closed washroom door to the kitchen table. Ranjiku sat there, looking utterly serene and devastatingly beautiful, even school shirt she wore with only half the buttons done up. She was sipping a cup of tea, a picture of innocence that was completely betrayed by the tiny cat-like smirk playing on her lips. Seeing Orihim's stunned, blushing face, Ranjiku's smirk widened. She took a delicate sip of tea. "Isn't your cousin coming with us to school?" Ranjiku asked, her tone light and casually curious. The question snapped Orihim out of her stupor. She shook her head rapidly, the motion a little jerky, her orange hair swishing. "Oh. And no. He's a couple of years older than me," she explained, her voice slightly higher than usual. "He's not in school anymore. He's focusing on his medical apprenticeship." She turned back to the counter, fussing unnecessarily with the already perfectly arranged fish, desperately trying to avoid making eye contact. The implications of what she thought had happened in that room were now painting vivid, embarrassing pictures in her mind. Ranjiku didn't reply immediately. She just hummed a low, thoughtful sound, her golden eyes glinting with renewed interest as they drifted from Orihim's flustered back to the closed washroom door, from behind which the sound of a shower running at full punishing pressure could still be heard. "A couple of years older, huh?" She mused to herself, her purr so quiet only she could hear it. Even better. The water, hot enough to turn his skin pink, beat a steady punishing rhythm against Naruto's back. He braced his hands against the shower tiles, head bowed, letting the stream plaster his blonde hair to his scalp and drown out the world. The girl's cheerful, synchronized shout of "Bye, Naruto-kun" from the front door had barely registered, a distant sound from a normal world that felt a million miles away. He squeezed his eyes shut, but behind his eyelids were not visions of a stunning strawberry blonde woman, but the snarling masks of monsters. 24 hours. In a single day, he'd been tested by a speed-blitzing assassin cat lady, confronted by soul reapers, and thrown into a warzone. His mind, finally quiet enough to process, replayed the fight not with pride, but with a surgeon's cold analysis. The ones that got away. The scorpion, the boar, the cobra. He'd carved through them, but he hadn't cleaned the operating table. A messy procedure. Loose ends. And in his experience, loose ends had a way of festering. The vision in his mind bled into reality, far away in the cold polished throne room of Las Noches. The 3 surviving Ajuchas were a pitiful sight, their forms battered and bleeding black fluid onto the pristine white floor. The scorpion's tail was a severed stump, the boar's mask was a web of cracks, and the cobra-like hollow's tendrils lay limp and torn. Before them, the might of Hueco Mundo stood in silent judgment. The assembled espada, and on his crystalline throne, the ruler himself, Sasuke-san. The air was thick with a pressure that made the very light seem to bend. The human his Ryatsu was a lie. The scorpion Ajuchas chittered, its voice a rasp of pain and fear. It was dense, heavy, it felt like one of Asahalo's. But he did not fight like a beast. He fought like a surgical reaper. The boar grunted, shifting its weight with a wince. A triple-bladed scythe. Crimson. He moved without moving inside a blue dome. Tricksy abilities. He would swap our places. Make us strike each other. He was precise. Carved through our pack like we were nothing. Aizen listened, his expression one of mild academic interest. He leaned forward slightly, the motion causing the entire room to hold its breath. "Interesting," Aizen mused, his voice calm and resonant. "This new player. Tell me, did he not use a zero? A human wielding such power typically lacks finesse." The scorpion and boar hollows flinched as if struck. "And not exactly," Lord Aizen the scorpion stammered. He killed Akatsu with his own zero." A ripple of reaction went through the espada. Grim Joji Jurjakas let out a sharp approving cackle, a feral grin splitting his face. He turned his own blast against him. "This human's got claws." Noitrugilga smirked, his multiple arms crossing. "A cheap trick. I'd still crush him." From his pillar, Jin Ichimaru's slit-like eyes opened just a fraction, his fixed smile not wavering as his gaze slid towards Aizen, analyzing his master's reaction. Aizen said nothing. He simply tapped a single finger once, twice, on the arm of his throne. Tap. Tap. The sound was like a divine gavel. The spiritual pressure in the room didn't just increase. It solidified. The cobra Ajuchas, already weakened, let out a final, choked gasp before its body began to crack and flake away, disintegrating into reishi dust under the sheer, unbearable weight. It was erased without a gesture, without a command, as casually as a man might flick a speck of dust from his sleeve. The scorpion and boar were instantly pressed flat into the floor, their bodies bowing so deeply the stone beneath them fractured. They dared not even whimper. As suddenly as it had come, the pressure alleviated, leaving only the scent of ozone and terror. Aizen's smirk returned, warmer this time, like a benevolent king bestowing a gift. "Well now," he said, his voice dripping with false magnanimity. "I believe you two have earned a reward. As I agreed with Porikatsu, let us see what kind of a ranker you shall become." He waved a dismissive hand. In a flash of light that cast long, dancing shadows from the terrified Ijuchas, the Hijoku floated into the room, pulsing with a malevolent cosmic promise. One singular thought passed through the evolving hollows. That human was dead next time they crossed paths. Back in the shower, Naruto finally lifted his head, water streaming down his face. He took a deep, steadying breath. The loose ends were out there. And he had a terrible feeling the next procedure was going to be far more complicated. He turned off the water, the sudden silence feeling louder than any explosion. "I've got some time to kill before Orihime finishes with school, maybe I'll pick her up." Grabbing a towel, he stepped over his discarded sweepings and snatched his phone from the sink edge. It was a clunky flip-style model. He scrolled through his sparse list of contacts, his thumb pausing on one entry. Candace. A name, a number, and a whole lot of questions. But she was a connection, something outside the whirlwind of Shinigami, hollows, and emotionally devastating morning routines. He flipped the phone open and began inputting a quick text. "Hey. You around?" He hit send. The little pixelated message sent icon popped up. He exited the washroom, a towel around his waist. Moving through the kitchen, his eyes landed on a forgotten lunch bag on the counter. "God damn it, cousin," he sighed with a fond shake of his head, grabbing it before heading to get dressed. The Karakura High School rooftop was a pocket of uneasy calm amidst the spring day. Ichigo leaned against the fence, his lunch barely touched, the weight of recent events robbing him of an appetite. Beside him, Orihime chattered away, trying to fill the silence as she spoke to Chad. The Ryu and the non-spiritually aware kids were the only ones currently missing. The rest of the group maintained a careful distance. Hashiro Hitsugaya, looking profoundly uncomfortable in a school uniform that was a few shades of beige too dull for his intense presence, stood with his arms crossed. Ranjiku Matsumoto, perfectly at home, basked in the sun beside him, while Lukaku Madaram and Yumichika Asagawa loitered near the door, their postures too rigid, their eyes scanning the horizon like soldiers on patrol, rather than students on break. Renji and Rukia just made it to the roof, getting out late due to detention. It was Hitsugaya who noticed it first. His teal eyes, which had been narrowed at a passing cloud, snapped to a fixed point in the sky above the school gate. A faint intermittent green flash, like a misbehaving star, was growing closer with impossible speed. The soft thump of displaced air, barely audible, sounded from directly above them. Everyone on the rooftop looked up. Silhouetted against the sun, a figure stood in midair, one foot casually planted on nothing, the other leg bent as if resting on an invisible step. A shimmer of emerald green light faded from the sole of his sneaker. "Welp," Naruto's voice floated down, laced with familiar, lazy amusement. "Looks like I found the weird kid's table." Boom flash. A burst of jade light erupted beneath him. He dropped like a stone for a split second before another boom flash halted his descent just feet above the rooftop railing. He landed with a whisper soft tap of his shoes, his momentum perfectly cancelled. He straightened up, a brown paper bag in one hand, a wide, whiskered grin on his face. "Forgot your lunch, Haim," he said, his eyes twinkling as he tossed the bag to his stunned cousin. The Shinigami were frozen, their own lunches forgotten. Ichigo just pinched the bridge of his nose. "Don't you know how to use a front door?" "Stairs are for suckers, Ichi," Naruto retorted, his gaze now sweeping over the others. It lingered for a beat too long on Ranjiku, a faint blush dusting his cheeks, before he masterfully schooled his features into casual appraisal. His eyes then slid over Ikaku and Yumichika before landing squarely onto Shiro. His grin didn't fade, but it gained a sharp, knowing edge. Well. Fancy meeting you all here. Small world," Naruto drawled, stepping fully onto the rooftop. He walked over to Orihime, deliberately turning his back on the captains and lieutenants, a move that made Ikaku's eye twitch. Handing her the lunch bag, he turned to Ranjiku. "I wasn't sure if you had a lunch, so here." Ranjiku's mouth dropped, slightly caught off guard by the earnest gesture. "So, Chibi-san, Baldy, pretty boy," he said, acknowledging them with a casual flick of his hand without even looking. "You all transfer in. You guys look a little old for this place, except for you look like you belong in middle school." Hitsugaya's jaw tightened. "We are here on student exchange." The word sounded like ash in his mouth. Naruto's smile was all teeth. "Is that what they're calling it these days? Cute." He leaned against the railing next to Orihime, who was now looking between him and the Shinigami with wide, anxious eyes. The air grew thick. The playful atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a silent, spiritual standoff. Naruto's own Ryatsu, usually kept on a tight leash, was a subtle, dense pressure in the air, a low-grade hum that set their nerves on edge. It wasn't just a challenge, but a reminder. "Naruto." Ichigo questioned. Orihime placed a calming hand on her cousin's arm. Naruto reined in his power, glancing to the big giant in the corner. You, Orihime I get, but how can you stand them, don't they bother you? How do you mean? I mean you're like me and there's something about them that bothers me. Ranjiku was the first to break the tension, a slow, appreciative smile spreading across her lips. My. That was quite an entrance. And that's not what I felt this morning. Naruto's composure finally cracked for a second, the blush returning full force. "Q quiet you," he muttered, before clearing his throat loudly. Ichigo looked like he wanted the rooftop to swallow him whole. Orihime had gone bright red again. Like him? Chad thought. Michika fanned himself delicately with his hand. Such a vulgar display of power. It ruins the natural aesthetics of the sky. Vulgar? Says the death god hiding in some fake body. We're not hiding, undercover. You damned punk. The Kaku snapped. The Boldy and the Fullbringer collided heads as they pushed against one another. Punk? I won't be called that from degenerate who thinks might makes right. Ijin, what, you damned brat. I'm an adult dumbus. Naruto snarled back. Yeah, and what universe, punk brat? The Kaku spat. Stick to an insult, Boldy. Knock it off, Ikaku, Toshiro ordered as Yumichika and Ichigo separated the duo. Lucky bald geezer if my sweet innocent cousin wasn't here, teenagers are not belt to ass. Naruto said lightly as Orihime swatted his arm. Yer, troublesome woman. His eyes locked on Hitsugaya. You get my cousin hurt. The message was received. Loud and clear. Hitsugaya took a single deliberate step forward. Captain? Ranjiku whispered. The temperature around him seemed to drop a few degrees. Are you threatening us? Ah. Ranjiku covered the blonde's mouth. Just a friendly reminder to keep dear sweet Orihime safe while we investigate the Arankor threat. The temperature returned to normal. Ranjiku released the blushing man only for the red head of the group to kiss his teeth. Lucky bastard. The shortest member of the Shinigamis heard him. What was that, Renji? As she stomped on his foot. Oh, nothing, Rukia, what was that for? Naruto regained his composure and sent a glower towards Ranjiku. I'm going shopping later, text me what you want to eat. He said to his cousin. Naruto pushed off the railing. Good. Glad to hear it. He ruffled Orihime's hair. See you after school, Hime. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. He gave Ichigo a nod and a wry smirk. Strawberry. He whiskered-faced ass. Then, with a final insolent wink that encompassed the whole group of disguised Shinigami, he took 2 running steps and hopped. Ah. Ichigo spat as the bottom of Naruto's shoe caressed his face. Boom flash. The green star flared into existence, propelling him high into the air. Boom flash. He zigzagged around a flock of birds. The blonde became a distant jade-green speck, leaving behind a rooftop full of deeply unsettled soul reapers and the faint electric scent of his spiritual pressure. And what an ass indeed. Ranjiku hummed as she shamelessly leered. The Kaku was the first to speak, grinding his teeth. I really don't like that guy. Hitsugaya's gaze was still fixed on the empty sky. His power is an anomaly. And he knows far too much. Ranjiku sighed, a dreamy look on her face. I don't know, I think he's rather refreshing. On the rooftop, surrounded by his powerful disguised allies, Ichigo Kurosaki felt more alone than ever. The bloody nose did not help. Naruto had just drawn a line in the sand and without even realizing it, Ichigo was standing right on top of it. The wind of Wako Mundo howled its eternal mournful song, whipping fine white sand into shifting dunes. Here, in the lee of a colossal bone-white spire that clawed at the starless black sky, 2 figures met. One stood in plain view, Ebern, tall and slender, his red hair swept back into sharp peaks, the mask fragment over his left eye, making him look like a sculpted monument to arrogance. The other was a deeper blackness against the perpetual twilight, a humanoid shadow pooled at the base of the spire. No features were visible, no discernible clothing, just an silhouette that seemed to drink the faint luminescence of the sand and the pale spire, its edges blurred and uncertain. Ebern's upward-pointing right eyebrow twitched in irritation. You summon me to this desolation for a reason, or merely to waste my time? He rasped, his voice cutting through the wind. The shadow did not move, but a voice emerged from it, smooth as polished bone and just as cold. It was a whisper, yet it carried perfectly, devoid of any identifiable accent or age. Your time is only wasted if you fail to see opportunity, Arankor. Opportunity for whom? Ebern sneered. For you. For the purity of our purpose. The shadow's voice was a hypnotic silken thread. A new variable has entered the equation of this world. A paradox that offends the natural order. Ebern crossed his arms, his disdain palpable. Get to the point, you grinning fool. The human male. Uzumaki Naruto. He walks the world of the living, yet his soul resonates with a power that is not his own. It is a stolen, hollowed power. He has learned to mimic the Siroes and Sama has found this boy and his cousin intriguing. A flicker of genuine surprise, quickly masked by deeper contempt, crossed Ebern's features. A human firing a Siro. Blasphemer. A cheap trick of Reishi manipulation. The evidence is undeniable, the shadow whispered back, its tone leaving no room for argument. He is an impurity. A corruption. He parades a Hollow's power without bearing a Hollow's chain, without understanding the sacrifice it entails. He is an insult to your very nature. The words were carefully chosen, designed to prick at Ebern's pride and fundamentalism. The shadow was not ordering. It was sculpting his will. And you wish for me to what? Applaud his ingenuity? Ebern's voice was a low growl. I wish for you to test him, the shadow replied, its form seeming to ripple, though it still gave away no detail. To measure the depth of this corruption. To see if this power is a fleeting spark or a true blasphemous flame. Draw it out. Make him reveal the full extent of what he has become. Show him the gulf between a pretender and a true heir of Waco Mundo. A slow, cruel smile spread across Ebern's face. The idea was taking root, appealing to his sense of superiority and his visceral hatred for the unnatural. To reveal a fraud that is a task worthy of my attention. To make him understand the price of his thievery. Precisely, the shadow purred. Learn his methods. His limits. And then well, the disposition of a failed experiment is up to the scientist. Ebern gave a short, sharp nod, his mind already racing with strategies. This Naruto Uzumaki will learn that some powers are not for humans to touch. See that he does, the shadow murmured, its presence already beginning to dissipate, not with a flash, but by simply fading into the greater darkness of the spire, as if it had never been there at all. Do not disappoint. Left alone with the howling wind, Ebern clenched a fist, white Ryukyu flickering around his knuckles. The target. A purpose that aligned perfectly with his contempt and could get him noticed by Aizen and Sama. He looked out across the endless white desert towards the distant invisible barrier to the world of the living. Your borrowed time is up, little human, he muttered to the uncaring void. The real thing is coming for you. In the world of the living, Naruto sneezed. The automated doors of the supermarket hissed shut behind Naruto, cutting off the blast of sterile air-conditioned air. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Karakura streets, painting everything in hues of orange and gold. He shifted the weight of 2 overstuffed grocery bags in his hands, the plastic handles digging into his palms. The mundane task of shopping for dinner had been a welcome, normalizing anchor after the chaos of the last few days. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, 2 figures passed him, walking in the opposite direction. One was a giant of a man, broad-shouldered and imposing, with a kind face partially obscured by a high-collared jacket and a beanie. The other was taller, lankier, with dark hair pulled back and a relaxed, almost lazy posture, a single red marking under his eye. Naruto's steps didn't falter, but his spiritual senses, always humming in the background, gave a subtle, discordant flicker. He didn't know them. They weren't Shinigami, their pressure lacked that specific polished edge. They weren't hollows, there was no corrosive hunger. But they weren't entirely human either. It was a strange, layered feeling, like 2 different frequencies playing at once. Something was off. He glanced over his shoulder, but the pair had already turned a corner, their unusual presence fading as quickly as it had appeared. Weird. This town is a magnet for every freak in the spiritual world, he thought with a mental sigh, adjusting his grip on the bags and continuing his walk home. At least they didn't start anything. He'd made it another half a block, the familiar surroundings of his neighborhood beginning to welcome him back, when the air cracked. It wasn't a sound you heard with your ears so much as felt in your bones, a dry, precise sonic boom that violated the natural quiet of the evening. There was no time to turn, no time to summon his pendant, no time for a room. The force like a freight train slammed into his back. The world upended in a nauseating whirl. The grocery bags flew from his hands, exploding in midair. A shower of instant ramen packets, vegetables, and a carton of eggs became a surreal constellation around him as he was launched horizontally off his feet. Crash, boom, thud. He smashed through the brick facade of a laundromat, the impact jarring every bone in his body. He tumbled through the interior, overturning washing machines and snapping clothing racks like twigs, before blasting out through the opposite wall in a cloud of dust, shattered cinder block, and shredded laundry. He skidded across the asphalt of a back alley, finally coming to a stop in a heap against a dumpster, the air knocked from his lungs. Groaning, Naruto pushed himself up onto his elbows, spitting out a mouthful of brick dust and blood. His entire back screamed in protest. Through the brand new person-shaped holes in 2 walls, standing in the middle of the ruined laundromat amidst the settling debris, was a tall, slender figure. Ebern slowly lowered his foot, the motion elegant and dismissive. He brushed a speck of dust from his white uniform, his red hair sharp and unmoving in the breeze. The 3 holes in the mask fragment over his left eye seemed to stare into Naruto's soul. Pathetic, Ebern's voice rasped, laced with utter contempt. To think a creature like you managed to stain the honor of Minos. You can't even perceive a direct approach. Naruto coughed, getting shakily to his feet. The world swam for a moment before his vision cleared, his blue eyes narrowing into slits of focused rage. He wasn't looking at a monster. He was looking at an arrogant asshole who had just ruined dinner. "Hey, fuckface," Naruto snarled, his hand already snapping up to clutch the pendant at his chest. "You just made a big mistake. Those were my groceries." "Fuckface, how crude, my name is Ebernaz." The flash of emerald light erupted in the devastated alley and interrupted the hollow's prattle. Surgical malpractice. Naruto's spiritual pressure didn't just rise. It detonated. The very air in the alley thickened, shimmering with a corrosive gold-green haze that made the rubble vibrate and the remaining windows of the laundromat crack. It was a suffocating wave, dense with the promise of violence. Clang sparks. The sound was a shriek of tortured metal and spiritual energy. Ebern's mock Zanpakuto met not Naruto's side, but the blonde's reinforced forearm. A visible shell of emerald light flared around Naruto's arm, holding firm against the blade in a shower of brilliant white and green sparks. The Aranker's hollow eye widened infinitesimally behind his mask fragment. He hadn't even seen the movement. The blonde had used the flash of his own release as a diversion. The crimson side had been a hair's breadth from shearing through his neck. HMPH Ebern forced out, masking his shock with contempt. Exploiting a perceived blind spot. A coward's trick. How utterly human. Naruto's grin was a feral, blood-stained thing. You called it a trick. After a cheap shot from behind. He leaned into the locked blades, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Do you have any idea how much eggs cost in this economy, you bastard? Before Ebern could form a retort, an unholy, sun-bright glow erupted from the back of Naruto's throat, illuminating the hollow of his neck and casting his snarling features in stark, terrifying relief. The air itself sizzled. He wasn't lying was the only, stunned thought that managed to cross Ebern's mind before the world turned to orange annihilation. The point-blank zero didn't just hit him. It consumed him. The beam swallowed his form whole, its concussive roar deafening. It lifted him off his feet and carried him backwards like a leaf in a hurricane, slamming him bodily into the steel lattice of a telecom's tower. The metal shrieked, bending and twisting around his impact point before the zero's momentum blasted him clear, sending him tumbling through the sky, his uniform smoking and scorched. Ebern grunted, righting himself in mid-air, the stench of his own burned flesh filling his nostrils. Rage, pure and undiluted, boiled in his veins. The flash of green below. Boom flash. Naruto was a jade comet, a predator closing the distance in an instant. Ebern twisted on a dime, instinct screaming only to duck as the crimson scythe flew past his head, thrown like a spinning fishing lure. But the throw was a feint. A misdirection. As the weapon sailed past, the ethereal chain connecting it to Naruto's wrist lit up with neon green energy. There was another, smaller flash at the spiritually charged chain, and Naruto vanished from his position, rematerializing with his hand already on the weapon's grip, now inside Ebern's shattered guard. "Gotcha," Naruto whispered. He yanked hard on the chain. The scythe, its flight path magically reversed by the change in positioning, became a buzzsaw of returning death. There was no time for a curse, no time for a sonito. Only a wet, sickening crunch shriek of severing bone and spiritual tissue. Ebern's scream was a raw, guttural thing of pure agony. His sword arm, cleanly severed at the shoulder, spun away into the air, his Zanpakuto still clutched in its lifeless fingers. The torrent of dark, viscous blood arsed through the air, splattering against the buildings below. Naruto landed lightly on a nearby roof, hefting his massive scythe onto his shoulder, as if it weighed nothing. He watched the Aranker clutch at the gushing stump, his face a mask of pained disbelief. Naruto mused, his tone clinically dismissive. He flicked a single droplet of black blood from one of his scythe's blades. That other Aranker I met, he had way tougher skin. I guess not all of you are made equal. The walk back to Orihim's apartment was painted in the soft, melancholic hues of twilight. Ranjiku kept up a steady stream of light chatter, a deliberate attempt to shield the younger girl from the grim reality lurking beneath their school routine. They reached the foot of the apartment steps. Orihim turned, offering a bright, grateful smile. "Thank you for walking me home, Ranjiku-san." "Any time, sweetie," Ranjiku replied, her smile warm. It was then, in that fleeting moment of silence, that the past stabbed through her. A sensation like a single frozen needle tracing a path down her spine. A spiritual pressure she hadn't felt since the day Soul Society broke, since the day she saw him, that same infuriating smirk on his face as he stood beside Aizen and declared himself a traitor. It was faint, a mere flicker on the very edge of her perception, a whisper of silver and poison, gone almost before it registered. Jin. Her heart seized. Her golden eyes widened, all easygoing composure shattered. She spun around, her gaze frantically scanning the deepening shadows. Her hand twitched at her side, instinctively reaching for a hilt that wasn't there. It was the same helpless feeling she had watching him walk away into the Sinkamen. Nothing. There was only the quiet hum of the suburban evening. A ghost. It had to be a ghost. Then, a different pressure hit her. Naruto's. This one was no ghost, and it was no mere spike. It was a roaring tsunami crashing over the district. It was magnitudes higher, wilder, and more furious than anything she'd felt from him during their spar his rooftop display. It was a power screaming in rage and desperation, the hollow taint within it flaring like an open wound. The brief painful confusion about Jin was incinerated by the immediate tangible danger. The man who had brought her lunch, who blushed when she teased him, was fighting for his life. There was no time for the gigai. Orihime, inside. Now. Ranjiku commanded, her voice a whip crack of authority. Before Orihime could even process the command, a translucent, shimmering form Ranjiku's true soul reaper spirit burst from the back of the gigai. The mortal shell slumped to the ground with a soft thud, vacant and still. Freed from its constraints, Ranjiku became a blur of spiritual energy. With a powerful push that cracked the pavement, she launched herself into the air. She was a golden-orange comet, her lieutenant's badge materializing around her arm and a flutter of white, her Zanpakuto Masolid comforting weight at her hip. She didn't run. She flew, using Shunpo to tear through the streets towards the epicenter of the violent spiritual storm. The ghost of the traitor could wait. There was a pressing danger. Naruto landed lightly on the rooftop's edge, his scythe resting on his shoulder. The crimson blades were clean, already having shed Ebern's black blood. Below, in the street, the Aranker's severed arm lay twitching, the pale fingers still curled around the hilt of his mock Zanpakuto. The dark viscous pool spread around it. The slow, smug grin spread across Naruto's face. "Talk a big game, but you can't even hold onto your sword," he called down, his voice echoing in the sudden quiet. "Guess that's that. Some true heir of Wako Mundo you turned out to be." He watched Ebern clutch at the gushing stump of his shoulder, his body trembling. It was over. The arrogant bastard was neutered. Naruto began to relax, the fierce glow in his eyes dimming. Then, a sound cut through the air. Not a scream of pain, but a low, bubbling chuckle. It grew in volume, warping into a full, unhinged laugh that grated against the silence. Ebern threw his head back, his red hair stark against the twilight sky, his laughter echoing maniacally. Naruto's grin vanished. His brow furrowed in pure, unadulterated confusion. "The hell are you laughing at? You're missing an arm, you idiot." Ebern's laughter subsided into a wet gurgling chortle. "Foolish human, I can still feel it. My power, my true power." He lowered his head, and the grin he fixed on Naruto was one of pure predatory madness. "It has not diminished. In fact, it sings to me. My sword," Ebern hissed, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper, "is still in my hand." Naruto's eyes flickered down to the street, to the disembodied limb and the sword it so clearly held. "It's on the ground," he stated flatly, wondering if the blood loss was making the Aranker delirious. But Ebern's grin only widened, a terrifying, knowing thing. His eyes, full of malicious intent, were fixed on his own empty shoulder. The cold knot of understanding tightened in Naruto's gut. His gaze snapped back to the empty space where Ebern's arm should be. The empty clenched space. That hand, he realized, the blood draining from his own face. He's not looking at the stump. He's looking at the hand he thinks is still there. Before he could even form the thought, Ebern screamed his release. "Create, Calavera." The world detonated. A pillar of pure, violent white light erupted from Ebern's body, swallowing him whole. The spiritual pressure that burst forth was a physical force, shattering every window for a block and sending Naruto skidding back across the rooftop, his scythe coming up in a defensive guard. The light collapsed inward, and what stood in Ebern's place was no longer the slender Ranker. It was a monument of bone and menace. His entire form was encased in a skeletal, armored exoskeleton, the color of bleached bone. His lost arm was not just regenerated. It was now a massive clawed limb of solid white reishi, dwarfing his other. Jagged bone spurs thrust from his shoulders and knees, and his mask had expanded, crawling up the side of his face to form a horned, skull-like helm. In his fully formed hand, he now clutched a massive cruel-looking axe, its blade serrated and glowing with pale energy. Ebern, fully released, flexed his new, monstrous claws. The air itself seemed to whimper around him. "Now, human," his voice boomed, distorted and layered with 100 echoes. "Let us discuss the price of your insolence, you walking blasphemy." "Blasphemy? You think you're the first to label me as such? I've never eaten in a Ranker before." Naruto's grin turned malicious. A blue halo appeared in Naruto's free palm. Boom. The air within the blue dome sang with usurped authority. Ebern vanished, not in a blur, but in a blasphemous crack of sound that violated the dome's silence, reappearing on Naruto's right, his massive bone axe already mid-swing, aimed to cleave the blonde in two. Naruto didn't flinch. He didn't even move his feet. "Broom." The words were a calm verdict. The translucent blue dome, already encompassing them, seemed to solidify its claim on reality. Naruto simply raised his hand, 2 fingers extended before crossing them in a casual, almost dismissive gesture. Scree a crunch. The entire iron railing Naruto stood on tore itself from its concrete moorings with a shriek of protesting metal. It didn't just fall. It obeyed, whipping through the air in a serpentine coil, twisting itself around the descending axe head and halting its murderous arc dead in the air, mere inches from Naruto's face. The displaced wind from the aborted blow was a physical slap, blowing Naruto's hair back, but his eyes, cool and analytical, never left Ebern's enraged mask. "Oh, so close," Naruto taunted, his voice a low hum of pure condescension. "Bastard." Ebern roared, his monstrous arm bulging as he ripped his axe free, scattering the twisted metal debris. The rubble hung in the air for a moment within the blue dome, defying gravity. "I'll grind you to dust." Pale, destructive energy surged from his arm, coalescing into a ball of annihilating light. Tact. Naruto's fingers twitched. The scattered debris of the railing and chunks of the rooftop shot inward, forming a dense, spinning shield of metal and concrete that intercepted the blast with a deafening boom. Ebern's eyes darted through the settling dust. Where did he go? Fweet. 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 3 sharp piercing whistles, impossibly clear within the room, cut through the chaos. Ebern's head snapped up, following the sound to its source. Naruto stood perched in midair, high above him, 1 foot casually planted on nothingness, 2 fingers resting against his lips. His eyes narrowed, targeting locked. Pew. 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 3 thin, hyper-concentrated beams of orange zero lanced down, not with explosive force, but with the precision of laser scalpels. They punched through Ebern's resurrection, one through his shoulder, another through his thigh, a third shearing off a bone spur from his helm. Black blood, like crude oil, immediately began to weep from the clean cauterized holes. "Hollow point injection," Naruto whispered, smoke wafting from his lips like a spent cartridge. His spiritual pressure, a moment ago a roaring inferno, cooled into something focused and deadly. A pulse of green flared under his feet as he adjusted his stance on the air. "That speed technique," Naruto mused, his tone that of a curious scientist. "Those Ajuchas didn't use it. What's it called?" Sanito the Hollow wheezed, clutching his new wounds. "A celebration of sound." "Ah. I see." Naruto's smile was thin and sharp. "Well, I hope the next one of you they send can actually keep up." "Worm." Ebern's pride shattered. He vanished in another burst of Sanito, a desperate furious celebration of sound that ended directly behind Naruto, his remaining good arm, and the regenerating stump of the other swinging in a pincer motion of pale energy and bone. Naruto didn't turn. His left hand simply swung out, palm open, to meet the axe. He sighed, a sound of profound boredom. "You just don't get it, do you?" he said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "In here I win." The impact was a dull, resonant clang. In that same instant, the crimson scythe vanished from his right hand in a flicker of green light and rematerialized in his waiting left. His knuckles whitened as he took hold of his weapon. The entire palm began to crackle and hum, sheathed in a raging orange spiritual pressure that distorted the air around it. Back alley surgery. Ebern's eyes widened in primal terror, finally understanding the gulf between them. It was too late. Naruto's swing was a blur of vicious clinical economy. There was no grand flourish, only brutal efficiency. The crackling scythe passed through the axe and the arm holding it without a sound, then continued its arc, shaving off a third of the pale Ryatsu comprising Ebern's other limb. The Aranker's scream was a raw, guttural thing of pure agony as he fell to one knee, black blood pouring from the fresh, sizzling stumps. Naruto stood over him, twirling the scythe slowly between his fingers, the motion hypnotic and menacing. "Normally," he said, his voice eerily calm, "I'm a pretty good doctor. Can amputate without causing a speck of pain." His eyes hardened, the green within them glowing like cursed emeralds. "But honestly, you pissed me off." Ebern looked up, and in that single horrifying moment, he saw it all. The shadowy figure's manipulative words. His own arrogant pride. The sheer insurmountable depth of his opponent's power. He had been a pawn sent to test a king. "That bastard. He set me up." Ebern choked out, denial warring with despair. "No. I survived the Minos forest. I was a survivor. I was strong, I am strong. And you're not but a human. Zero." He poured every last shred of his being into a final, desperate blast. It was not orange, but a sickly, violent purple, a testament to his corrupted and dying will. It roared towards Naruto, wide enough to engulf him entirely. Naruto didn't even tense. He simply threw his scythe to the side. As the zero filled his vision, he whipped his arm in a sharp horizontal sweep. The ethereal chain followed the motion, snapping the scythe through the air in a perfect, blindingly fast arc. Cheeing. A single clean diagonal slash split the world. Naruto leant to the left only just a bit. The massive Zero beam was parted down the middle, the two halves screaming past Naruto on either side to detonate harmlessly against the edges of his room, washing his impassive face in purple light. Ebron's jaw went slack. His mind, what was left of it, could not process what he had just witnessed. Boom flash. Naruto appeared directly before the kneeling Aranker, his scythe already resting lightly against the hollow's neck, the cold metal kissing the pale bone of his resurrection. Spare Ebron began, a final plea. Shing. There was no resistance. The blade passed through flesh, bone, and mask fragment with a sound like a sigh. Ebron's head tilted, then slid from his shoulders, beginning its low, gruesome roll. Naruto snapped his fingers. The entire Aranker body, head included, was instantly encased in a vibrant emerald green glow. The furious chaotic Reishi that should have erupted outwards, returning to the cycle of souls, was instead contained, trapped within a perfect shimmering sphere. Naruto took a slow, deep breath, his chest expanding. The contained particles of the Aranker's essence, his power, his memories, his very being were forcibly drawn across the space, a river of shimmering green and black light, flowing directly into Naruto's parted lips. The emerald glow of the contained Reishi faded from Naruto's lips, the last motes of Ebron's existence vanishing into him. The absolute silence that followed was heavier than any explosion, broken only by the settling dust and the faint crackle of fading spiritual energy. Naruto-kun. The voice was familiar, but the tone was not. It was layered with wariness, authority, and a tremor of shock. Naruto turned, hovering mid-air, to see Ranjiku. But it wasn't the teasing house guest or the schoolgirl. This was a warrior. She stood amidst the rubble, clad in the stark black shirkism of a soul reaper, the white lieutenant's badge stark on her arm. Her zanpakuton was a solid real weight at her hip, and her golden eyes, usually warm with amusement, were wide and sharply focused. So that's what a Shinigami actually looks like, he muttered, more to himself than to her. The uniform suited her powerful frame, a testament to the deadly professional beneath the playful exterior. He offered a casual wave, but her hand didn't rise to return it. Instead, it dropped to the hilt of her sword, her knuckles white. The air, still thick with the residue of his room and the corrosive taint of hollow power, grew cold. What was that? She asked, her voice low and deliberate, each word a sharp stone dropped into the quiet. Naruto held up a single finger, asking for a moment as he sat cross-legged in the air, as if it were a solid floor. He let out a deep rumbling burp, and a visible pulse of Ryatsu escaped his lips, a brief, sickly purple black that twisted the air before it was forcibly overwritten by the familiar dense gold green of his own power. Ranjiku tensed further, her spiritual senses recoiling at the unmistakable, vile signature of a hollow being digested, being subsumed. It was an abomination to everything she was sworn to purge. Sorry, Naruto said, stretching his arms over his head with the languid grace of a well-fed predator. When you eat too quickly, sometimes it just takes a minute to settle. Other Shinigami felt the hollow's presence, she stated, her gaze flickering towards the distant approaching signatures she could sense. They'll be on their way. Toshiro, Captain Hitsugaya will have questions. Naruto smirked, a flash of his usual insouciance returning. With a thought, the translucent blue dome of his room vanished, releasing its hold on reality. The sounds of the city distant sirens, the hum of life rushed back in. I don't like those guys very much, he said, landing softly on the ravaged rooftop before her. Wanna head home, catch a movie, and order takeout. Movie? The concept was so jarringly mundane, so utterly human, that it seemed to short-circuit her professional alarm. Naruto stood, and with a flash of green light, the terrifying crimson scythe dissolved, reforging itself into the simple obsidian pendant around his neck. What do y'all do in heaven for fun? He asked with genuine curiosity. Look, I kinda need to explain the property damage to Orihime, too. How about we leave now, and you can find out more via proxy. Less paperwork for you, right? Ranjiku stared at him, at the casual ease with which he proposed skipping out on a captain's inquiry after just committing an act that blurred every line in the Soul Society rulebook. And yet the logic was sound. And the alternative was a confrontation she wasn't sure she wanted to mediate. I'm sure Captain Hitsugaya will understand. I'm saving the captain a headache now. She gave a single, sharp nod. If you say so. Boom flash. In an instant, he was beside her, so close she could feel the static heat of his recent power radiating from him. The scent of ozone and something wild filled her senses. Think you can keep up? He murmured, a challenge glinting in his ocean blue eyes. With a movement too fast for her distracted mind to track, he swiped the pink scarf from her shoulders. Come on, I've got some excess energy I need to burn. Boom flash. He was gone, a jade green streak already arsing across the twilight sky, her scarf fluttering behind him like a captured banner. You little cute whiskered blonde punk, she breathed out, the words a mixture of exasperation and sheer disbelief. Ikaku was right. Cute? The thought echoed in her mind, unbidden and entirely inappropriate. She bit her lip as if to physically stop the traitorous word. Then, with a sharp exhale that was half sigh, half acceptance, her form blurred. The SSHT. The air whispered in protest as she gave chase, a golden-orange flash step pursuing a Jade-bringer's light, leaving the scene of the crime and a world of complicated questions behind. The end. What if Naruto was Otsutsuki and Bleach end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.